So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Kung Fu Panda. So let's start the series. The air in the training ground tasted of ozone and crushed pine. Naruto Uzumaki stood at its center, his breath a ragged cloud in the twilight, his orange jacket torn at the shoulder. Across from him, Kakashi Hatake lowered his headband, the Sharingan a crimson glint in the gloom. Again, Kakashi said, his voice devoid of its usual lazy cadence. Your control is still erratic. The Nine-Tails chakra is a tide, Naruto. You must be the shore that shapes it, not the raft swept away. Naruto wiped a smear of blood from his chin, his blue eyes blazing with frustration. I'm trying, believe it. It just burns. It wants to explode. That is your own anger giving it voice, Kakashi countered, shifting into a fluid stance. Your chakra and karamas are intertwined now, more than ever. The imbalance isn't in the fox, it's in the junction between you. Find the calm within the storm. Again. Naruto roared, a cloak of bubbling red chakra erupting around him. He lunged, a blur of destructive intent. Kakashi danced aside, his movements economical, precise. He wasn't just testing Naruto's power, he was probing the stability of the seal, the delicate spiritual architecture that bound the bijou within his student. Hundreds of miles away, in a hidden rain-swept ruin, another seal was being tested. Sasuke Uchiha, his Rinnegan pulsing with otherworldly power, stood before a massive, archaic stone tablet. It was etched with the twisted, malignant scripture of a forbidden Uchiha Kenjutsu, the Kanten Jutsu, the boundary-severing technique. An Akatsuki scroll, recovered from Nagato's archives, lay unfurled at its base. You're certain this will draw him out? Sasuke's voice was cold, directed at the shimmering, segmented form of Zetsu that oozed from the shadows. Oh, yes, White Zetsu chuckled, a sound like rustling leaves. This technique doesn't attack a person. It attacks the space between things. The bonds between dimensions, between spiritual planes. When it activates, the resulting shockwave will ripple through every connected chakra network. The Nine-Tails, as the most potent concentration of chakra, will act like a beacon. The fox's distress will be irresistible to the one who seeks it. Sasuke's expression didn't change. His goal was singular, to lure out the remaining threats to the shinobi world, to draw all darkness into the open and excise it at once. If that meant straining the very fabric of reality, so be it. He placed a hand on the tablet, and his Rinnegan flared. Back in the training ground, Naruto's fist collided with Kakashi's earth-style wall. The impact didn't just shatter rock, the very air seemed to crack. A silent, high-frequency tremor passed through Naruto's chakra cloak. He gasped, stumbling back as a pain, sharp and wholly unfamiliar, lanced through his core. It wasn't physical. It was as if a foundational string in the symphony of his soul had snapped. What was that? Kurama's growl, usually a constant rumble in his mind, was tinged with surprise. Something is pulling. Before Naruto could respond, the world warped. The training ground, the trees, Kakashi's alarmed face, all of it stretched like taffy, colors bleeding into a vortex of impossible hues. He heard Kakashi shout his name, but the sound was sucked away into a void. The red chakra cloak around him flickered violently, then inverted, becoming a shell of deepest black shot through with gold. He was falling, not through air, but through layers of existence. He saw flashes, the serene, ghostly plane of the Sage of Six Paths, then a maelstrom of turbulent, rainbow-colored energy, and finally, a sky of eternal sunset over jagged, verdant mountains that stabbed at the heavens like stone fists. In the Kung Fu Panda world, in the tranquil courtyard of the Jade Palace, the peach tree of Master Oogway shuddered. Not from wind, for the air was still. It shuddered from the inside out. Every single blossom detached at once and hung in the air, frozen, before disintegrating into specks of golden light. Puh, who had been midway through a dramatically unsuccessful attempt at the stealthy, leaping leopard maneuver, froze. Whoa. Not cool. Did my awesomeness break the tree? Master Shifu, observing from the porch, felt a chill that had nothing to do with the altitude. His fur stood on end. He looked from the tree to the spirit realm gateway, a distant waterfall that shimmered with a soft, silver light. The light was sputtering, flashing erratically like a dying star. No, Panda, Shifu said, his voice tight. This is something else. Something has disturbed the balance of the spirit realm. As if in confirmation, the sky above the Valley of Peace rippled. The clouds contorted, and a soundless tear, a scar of void black and fox-red energy, ripped open directly above the palace. From it, a sphere of chaotic energy plummeted, trailing smoke and discordance. Incoming, bellowed Tigress, already in a fighting stance. The furious five and Shifu scattered as the sphere, crackling with an alien, aggressive energy, slammed into the center of the courtyard. The impact didn't blast, it imploded, sucking in light and sound for a terrifying second before releasing a shockwave of pure force that shattered tiles and shook the palace to its foundations. Dust and debris swirled. A deep crater smoked in the sacred training ground. And in its center, a figure slowly pushed itself up. Naruto groaned, his head ringing. The foreign, aggressive energy, his own corrupted chakra, receded back into him, leaving him in his torn orange jumpsuit. He blinked, his vision swimming. His senses, honed by years of shinobi warfare, screamed at him. Everything was wrong. The smells were too vivid: ginger, peach, bamboo. The air was too clean, too charged with a gentle, pervasive energy that was nothing like chakra. It felt welcoming, but it brushed against his own power like oil on water. And surrounding the crater were 7 anthropomorphic animals, all in fighting stances, their expressions a mix of shock, anger, and profound confusion. Hi. Naruto said, giving a weak, bloody-nosed wave. Poe's jaw was on the floor. You fell out of the sky. That was incredibly painful looking. And also kind of awesome. Are you a demon? You kinda glowed like a demon. A maybe okay demon? Silence, puh. Shifu snapped, his staff pointed unerringly at Naruto. His eyes, narrow and assessing, took in the strange garments, the whisker-like marks, the sheer, palpable otherness radiating from the boy. You bear a chaos within you. You have violated the sanctity of the Jade Palace. Identify yourself. Naruto's instincts kicked in. Hostile territory, unknown beings, clear threat. He shifted his weight, his hand unconsciously drifting towards a kunai pouch that wasn't there, it had been lost in the dimensional transition. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I don't know where this is or how I got here. I mean no harm. The words felt hollow even to him. Tigress stepped forward, her amber eyes blazing. Your energy says otherwise. It is a screech, a tear in the music of this place. Look at Uguay's tree. She gestured to the bare, trembling branches. Your arrival has wounded the world. Naruto followed her gaze, his heart sinking. He saw the ancient, wise-looking turtle, Master Uguay, materialize by the tree as if stepping from the sunlight itself. Uguay placed a gentle hand on the trunk, his face grave. He then turned his eyes to Naruto, and in that gaze, Naruto felt seen, not just his body or his chakra, but the lonely boy, the burdened hero, the vessel of rage and hope. A spirit in torment, Uguay said, his voice like stones in a quiet stream. Carrying a great shadow within a bright heart. You are lost, child, and your lostness is a ripple that becomes a wave. Before Naruto could process this, a different kind of ripple passed through the courtyard. From the still sparking edges of the crater, tendrils of inky darkness began to seep. They moved with sentient malice, coalescing into vaguely humanoid shapes with glowing, shared ringed eyes, manifestations of the Akatsuki's forbidden jutsu, echoes of spiritual corruption given form by the volatile mix of shattered chakra and the sensitive chi of this world. The shadow seeks form, Uguay intoned. The imbalance gives it purchase. The dark forms lunged, not at the kung fu masters, but straight for Naruto, as if drawn to the source of their existence. Instinct took over. Naruto's hands flew through seals he'd performed 10,000 times. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. With a chorus of pops, 24 identical Narutos erupted into being, filling the courtyard. The furious 5 stared, stunned by the blatant impossibility. What in the? Mantis squeaked. The shadow forms collided with the clones, and a brutal melee erupted. It was a clash of paradigms. Naruto's clones fought with shinobi pragmatism, explosive tags, conjured from his remaining scroll, substitution, taijutsu designed to kill. The shadow forms fought with a eerie, liquid grace, absorbing blows and striking with chilling, soul-numbing cold. Po watched, his earlier fear morphing into awe. He saw the stranger, outnumbered and injured, fighting with a desperate, fierce determination. He saw the pain behind his eyes, a pain he recognized, the pain of not belonging, of being a vessel for something you didn't ask for. He's fighting his own darkness, Po murmured, understanding dawning. Shifu saw it too, and his strategic mind analyzed. The boy's energy was violent, chaotic, but its core was defensive. He was not an invader. He was a castaway. Furious 5. Do not attack the boy. Disperse the shadows. Their energy is corrosive to chi. The masters leapt into action. It was not a coordinated effort with Naruto, it was 2 battles happening in the same space. Tigress's powerful, focus strikes shattered shadow forms, but they reformed. Crane used aerial sweeps, Viper her fluid binds, Monkey his agile trickery, Mantis his pinpoint pressure strikes. Their chi was effective, but the shadows seemed immune to its purifying qualities, only dispersed by sheer force. Naruto, panting amidst his dwindling clones, saw a shadow form slip past Tigress and spear towards Uguay. Without thinking, he pushed off the ground, a kunai-less hand thrust forward. Get away from him. But instead of a Rasengan, only a sputter of unstable chakra came forth. The shadow backhanded him, sending him skidding across the tiles. Poe's heart hammered. He saw the old master in danger. He saw the strange, brave, whiskered boy fall. Something clicked. He wasn't the dragon warrior because he knew the best move. He was the dragon warrior because he knew the right move. He didn't use a fancy technique. He used his body, a rolling, ungainly, yet inexplicably perfect mass that positioned him between the shadow and Uguay. As the shadow struck, but didn't block with force. He yielded. He absorbed the impact, his own considerable chi, a warm, golden, resilient energy, flowing out to meet the corrosive darkness. There was a sizzle, a flash of gold and black. The shadow shrieked, not in pain, but in dissonance, and dissolved into mist. Pa stumbled back, looking at his own paws in shock. Huh. That was new. Naruto stared from the ground, equally stunned. That panda, he hadn't fought the darkness. He had, absorbed it. Neutralized it with something calm and vast and different. Uguay nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. The dragon warrior meets the Nine-Tails vessel. Two sides of a coin the universe did not know it had minted. The remaining shadows, as if sensing a new threat, converged on Pa. Naruto saw it. This clumsy, talking panda who had just saved the old turtle was about to be overwhelmed for trying to help him. No. Naruto forced himself up. The anger, the frustration, the fear of this impossible situation boiled over. He felt Kurama's power surge in response, a familiar, dangerous warmth. Red chakra began to cloak him again. But then he met Poe's eyes. There was no fear in them looking at his transforming state. Just concern. And a stubborn, unwavering resolve. Hey, glow-eye dude. Pa yelled, deflecting a shadow blow with a wobbling, effective parry. The sauce. It's too spicy. You gotta find the neutral flavor. It was the most absurd advice Naruto had ever received in the middle of a fight. Yet, in its absurdity, it cut through the rage. Find the neutral flavor. The calm within the storm. The shore, not the raft. Naruto took a shuddering breath. He didn't suppress Kurama's chakra. He didn't control it with force. He listened to it, felt its chaotic, protective roar, and then he imagined that warm, golden energy he'd felt from the panda wrapping around it. Not fighting it. Balancing it. The raging red cloak flickered, stabilized, and softened at the edges, hinting at an underglow of gold. He moved. Not with his clone army, but alone. His movements became less purely brutal, more fluid. He wasn't just smashing shadows, he was disrupting their core with precise strikes infused with this new, hybrid energy. He and Pa, back to back, were a discordant symphony slowly finding harmony, wild, unpredictable ninja arts meeting unwavering, resilient chi. Together, they cleared the last of the shadows. Silence returned to the courtyard, heavier now. The furious five stood in a loose circle, wary but no longer immediately hostile. Shifu's staff was still raised, but his gaze was analytical. Uguay approached. Naruto's hybrid chakra faded, leaving him exhausted, bleeding, and utterly bewildered. He looked at Pa, who offered a tentative, goofy grin and a thumbs up. So, Pa said, breaking the tense silence. You from around here? 'Cause the falling from the sky thing and the shadow monster fighting thing isn't really a local gig. Naruto almost laughed, a hysterical bubble of relief and disbelief. He'd fought gods, monsters, and traitors. But this? This was beyond his scroll. Uguay stood before him. The seal that binds your inner shadow was stressed by a great malice from your world. It created a tear, not just in space, but in spirit. You have fallen into the wound, Naruto Uzumaki. And until the wound in both worlds is healed, you cannot return. The darkness you brought is but a symptom. The true disease is spreading. He looked towards the spirit realm gateway, which now pulsed with an unhealthy, sickly green light. A deep, resonant groaning sound echoed from within it, a sound of a realm in pain. Naruto followed his gaze, a cold dread settling in his stomach. He was stranded in a world of talking kung fu animals, with a gentle panda as his only ally, a grumpy raccoon as his judge, and a mystery that threatened not just this peaceful valley, but everything he'd ever fought for. The battle for balance, it seemed, was just beginning, and he was hopelessly, terribly, unprepared. The echo of the spirit realm's groan faded, leaving a profound and unsettling silence in its wake. The tension in the courtyard was a physical thing, as thick as the dust still settling between the shattered tiles. Naruto felt the weight of 7 pairs of animal eyes upon him. He had faced down Kage, battled Akatsuki, and stared into the face of a goddess. Yet this felt different. There was no clear enemy to punch, no grand proclamation of war. There was only a terrible, aching wrongness in the world, and he was apparently the cause. He straightened his spine, a gesture of habit as much as defiance. The move pulled at the fresh bruises and cuts across his ribs. The strange, fleeting harmony of his chakra with the panda's energy was gone, leaving him feeling scraped raw and hollow. The fox's chakra within him was a sullen, simmering presence, responding to the ambient, gentle pressure of this world's chi like a wolf bristling at a too bright light. I don't understand, Naruto said, his voice hoarse. He addressed Uguay, whose ancient, patient gaze seemed to hold galaxies of unspoken knowledge. A tear? A wound? What does that even mean? I was just training with my sensei, and then, everything stretched. He gestured helplessly at the sky, now a serene twilight purple as if mocking the recent chaos. Things do not stretch without reason, Uguay said softly, tapping his staff on the ground. The sound was a gentle talk that seemed to vibrate through the very stones, a note of stability. Your world and this one are not neighboring valleys, child. They are separate melodies in the symphony of existence. But every melody shares the same air, the same fundamental vibration. Something has struck a note of profound discord in your song, and the resonance has cracked the instrument of ours. Shifu, his fur still bristling slightly, stepped forward. He kept his staff between himself and Naruto, a barrier more symbolic than practical. Master Uguay speaks in poetry. The practical matter is this: your energy is a poison here. It is violent, untamed, and it attracts corruption. Look. He pointed a clawed finger at the lingering wisps of black mist where the shadow forms had dissolved. Those were not independent beings. They were manifestations, spiritual pus drawn to an open wound, you. The bluntness of the accusation hit Naruto like a physical blow. He flinched. His entire life, he had been seen as a container for a monster, a walking catastrophe. He had fought, bled, and nearly died to change that perception in his own world. To hear it here, in this impossibly foreign place, from a small, stern raccoon, reopened an old scar he thought had healed. I'm not a poison, he ground out, fists clenching at his sides. The whisker marks on his cheeks seemed to darken. I control it. I've mastered it. Have you? Tigress's voice was cool, analytical. She stood with her arms crossed, her powerful frame the picture of disciplined skepticism. You arrived as a comet of chaos. Your first act was to unleash an army of clones in a sacred space. Your energy screams. Mastery is silent. Mastery is balance. She gestured to the still, centered forms of her fellow warriors. What you have is a leash on a typhoon. And the leash is fraying. Puh, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, watching the exchange with wide, worried eyes, finally shuffled forward. Guys, come on. Ease up on the walking poison thing. He just got here. And he helped fight the shadow goop. I mean, look at him. Po waved a paw at Naruto's torn clothes, bloody face, and exhausted posture. He's like a lost, pointy-eared kitty who fell out of a tree. A really strong, glowy kitty. The analogy was so ludicrous it broke the tension, if only for a second. Mantis snickered. Viper hid a smile behind her coils. Even Shifu's stern expression twitched. Naruto blinked, looking from the fierce tiger to the earnest panda. The contrast was dizzying. I'm not a kitty, he muttered, but some of the defensive heat left his shoulders. Puh, while your unique brand of diplomacy is noted, the danger remains, Shifu said, though his tone had lost its sharpest edge. We cannot have an unstable nexus of foreign energy sitting in the heart of the Jade Palace. It is a threat to the Valley of Peace and to the stability of the spirit realm itself. Then what would you have us do, Master Shifu? Crane asked, his voice graceful and concerned. We cannot simply cast him out. If he is the focal point, casting him out may spread the imbalance further, like scattering embers from a fire. He must learn, Uguay said, his words falling into the debate like a stone into a pond, creating ripples of silence. All eyes turned to him. The old turtle's face was serene, but his eyes held a deep, solemn intensity as he looked at Naruto. The wound exists at the junction of two energies, the chakra of your world, and the chi of ours. They are not the same, but they are cousins. One is the river, the other is the ocean. Both are water. Both can flood, or nourish. He moved closer to Naruto, his steps slow and deliberate. You carry a river within you that is prone to violent flooding. You have learned to build dams, to divert its power. This is a form of control. But it is not harmony. To heal the wound you are part of, you must learn the nature of the ocean. You must learn to let your river flow into it, not crash against it. Naruto stared, utterly lost. Dams? Rivers? Oceans? He was a shinobi. His lessons were on chakra control, hand seals, battle strategy. This was philosophy. I just need to get back, he said, a note of desperation creeping in. My friends, my village, they'll be looking for me. There are people who need me. And what will you return to them as? Oogway asked gently. A source of the same discord that cast you here? If the tear is not mended from both sides, your return may only complete the rupture, dooming both melodies to silence. The terrible, chilling logic of it settled over Naruto. He thought of Sasuke, of the chilling, analytical look in his eyes when he pursued his rogue justice. Could this have been his doing? Some forbidden Uchiha technique gone wrong? Or the Akatsuki? A sickening sense of responsibility, heavier than any he'd felt before, pressed down on him. This wasn't about protecting a village anymore. It was about protecting the fabric of reality itself, and he was, however unwillingly, at the center of the unraveling. What do I have to do? The question was a whisper, stripped of bravado. You must learn chi, Oogway said simply. You must understand balance from its source. And you must do it here, where the wound first opened. Master. Shifu protested, aghast. To teach a stranger, an unstable stranger, the ways of chi? The sacred arts of the Jade Palace? It is unprecedented. It is dangerous. The universe has preceded us, old friend, Oogway said, his smile returning, faint and wise. It has delivered a student. A most unusual one. And, he added, his eyes twinkling as they shifted to Po, it has provided a most unusual teacher. Po's jaw dropped again. Me? Teach him? Master Oogway, I barely know how to tie my own sash without falling over. I'm still working on the inner peace thing. I usually find mine at the bottom of a noodle bowl. Exactly, Oogway said, as if that explained everything. He knows control through force. You know harmony through noodle bowls. The lesson is not in the technique, Po. It is in the perspective. You will help him see his river not as a weapon, but as water. Naruto looked at the goofy, overweight panda who talked about food in the middle of spiritual crises. This was to be his teacher. He'd been trained by the copy ninja, by a legendary Sannin, by a toad sage. This was a joke. It had to be. But then he remembered the feeling of Po's warm, golden energy meeting his own corrosive darkness. The way it hadn't fought, but had simply accepted and neutralized. There was no technique to it. It was just being. It was a power born not of conflict, but of self-acceptance. Something he, Naruto Uzumaki, had spent a lifetime clawing towards. Okay, Naruto said, surprising himself. He met Po's bewildered gaze. I'll learn. From the panda. Po's panic melted into a slow, dawning grin. It was a grin of pure, unadulterated excitement. Really? You mean it? This is so cool. We can start with the basics. Stance. Breath control. And then maybe a snack break, because emotional revelations always make me hungry, and you look like you could eat a whole pig, no offense, pig, if you're listening. Shifu let out a long, suffering sigh, the sound of a master accepting the inevitable against all better judgment. Very well. But he is your responsibility, Po. His actions, his energy, his everything. And he is confined to the palace grounds until we can be certain he won't set fire to the valley with his mere presence. Tigress stepped forward, her gaze locking with Naruto's. It was not friendly, but it was no longer openly hostile. It was the look of a warrior assessing a new, unpredictable element on the battlefield. I will be watching, she stated, the promise clear. One by one, the furious five dispersed, casting backward glances filled with curiosity, wariness, and in Monkey's case, outright amusement. Soon, only Naruto, Po, and Oogway remained in the ravaged courtyard. Oogway placed a gentle hand on Naruto's shoulder. The touch was cool and steady, and for a fleeting moment, the chaotic churn within Naruto's gut stilled. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, Naruto Uzumaki. Your first step was a fall. Your next must be a choice. Choose to listen. Not just to me, or to Po. But to the world around you. And to the world within you. With that, the ancient turtle nodded to Po and shuffled away, seeming to blend into the deepening shadows of the evening. Po clapped his hands together, rubbing them with glee. All right. Student. First lesson. follow me to the kitchens. The kitchens? Naruto asked, utterly bewildered. Of course. The foundation of all great kung fu is a well-fed warrior. Also, I'm starving. And you need patching up. We've got some epic medicinal broth that'll fix you right up. It's all about the balance of flavors, see? Sweet, sour, bitter, pungent, salty. Just like, just like stuff. As Po waddled excitedly towards the palace interior, chattering about dumpling philosophy, Naruto stood alone for a moment in the wreckage. He looked up at the stars, beginning to prick the violet sky. They were the same stars, yet somehow they felt different. The air hummed with a silent energy that both repelled and called to the power inside him. Well, Kurama, he thought, reaching inward to the vast, red consciousness that shared his soul. Looks like we're stuck in a fairy tale with a panda as our guide. Humph, the nine-tails grumble echoed in his mind, but even it lacked its usual venom, replaced by a weary, intrigued curiosity. This place reeks of stale peace and foolish optimism. But that old turtle, and the panda, their energy is unusual. It does not seek to suppress. It seeks to encompass. Tread carefully, brat. We are in a realm where force may not be the answer. Naruto took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of crushed ginger, night-blooming flowers, and the distant, sickly sweet tang emanating from the spirit realm gateway. He thought of Kakashi, of Sakura, of his village. They were worlds away. His mission now was not to become Hokage, not to defeat a foe, but to learn a different way of being. To turn his cacophonous river into something that could flow with an ocean. Chapter 2, Foundations of Soup and Storm. The kitchens of the Jade Palace were a warm, chaotic symphony of their own. Giant woks hung over glowing hearths, shelves groaned under the weight of ceramic jars filled with spices that smelled like colors Naruto had never seen, and the air itself was thick with steam and the scent of 100 different ingredients. It was as far from a shinobi ration bar or Ichiraku's familiar, simple broth as one could possibly get. Po moved through this organized chaos with a surprising, doughy grace. He wasn't just cooking, he was conducting. A flick of his wrist sent a shower of scallions into a simmering pot. A nudge of his hip spun a grinding stone, pulverizing star anise and dried lotus seeds. He hummed a tuneless, upbeat song as he worked. Naruto sat stiffly on a low stool by a massive chopping block, a damp cloth held awkwardly to a cut on his forehead. He watched, feeling more out of place than ever. He was a weapon, a soldier, sitting in a temple to food. Okay. Po announced, ladling a deep, amber liquid into two wide porcelain bowls. He placed one before Naruto with a flourish that nearly sloshed the contents. The ultimate medicinal broth of supreme healing and also really good taste. Get it while it's hot. The healing is in the heat, see? Opens up the energy channels. He tapped his own round belly confidently. Naruto stared at the bowl. Floating in the clear broth were slices of ginseng, goji berries, cloud ear mushrooms, and something that looked like curled, translucent flowers. It smelled incredible, earthy, sweet, and pungent all at once. His stomach, which had been tied in knots of anxiety and dimensional dislocation, gave a loud, undeniable gurgle. Po beamed. See? Your spirit belly agrees with me already. Dig in. Cautiously, Naruto picked up the spoon, a strangely delicate instrument compared to a kunai, and took a sip. Flavor exploded on his tongue, complex and layered. It was warming, spreading a gentle heat from his core outward. Some of the sharp, jangling edges of his pain seemed to soften. It was nice. Really nice. It's good, he admitted, taking a larger gulp. Good? It's foundational. Po said, slurping from his own bowl with abandon. Food isn't just fuel, Naruto dude. It's information. It's energy. You put in angry, rushed food, you get angry, rushed chi, you put in balanced, intentional food, you get, he flexed a noodly arm with a comically serious expression. Centered chi. Naruto frowned, chewing on a mushroom. Chi, that's the energy here. It feels different. Describe it. Po encouraged, his black eyes bright. I've only ever known chi, what's your glowy stuff feel like? Naruto put down his spoon, trying to find the words. He held up a hand, focusing. A faint, blue-white aura of chakra flickered around his fingertips, sputtering slightly as it interacted with the thick chi in the air. Chakra it's like water from a high-pressure hose. You mold it, shape it, direct it. It comes from physical energy and spiritual energy mixed together inside you. You use it to walk on water, to create fire, to make clones. He willed a tiny, wobbly raisingan, no bigger than a marble, into existence above his palm. It whirred, straining against the ambient pressure of the palace before winking out. Po leaned in, his snout almost in the Rasengan space. Whoa. Spicy meatball. So you make it do stuff. You tell it what to be. Yeah, basically. Po wiped his mouth, thinking. Chi isn't like that. Chi is, already doing stuff. It's the stuff. It's in the steam from the broth. He gestured to the rising vapors. It's in the strength of the stone. He knocked on the hearth. It's in my goofy awesomeness and Tigress's fierce awesomeness. We don't make Chi do kung fu. We align ourselves with it. We get out of its way and let it flow through us in the right way. It's less about pushing, more about letting go. Naruto's brow furrowed. Letting go? That was the antithesis of all his training. Letting go of control meant the Ninetales got loose. Letting go in battle meant death. That sounds irresponsible. Or maybe it's the most responsible thing of all. Po countered, undaunted. Trying to control everything is exhausting, right? You're always fighting. Fighting the enemy, fighting your own power. Must be a real drag. He said it with such simple, profound empathy that Naruto was struck silent. Po saw it. He saw the constant war inside him. Before Naruto could respond, a cool, sharp voice cut through the kitchen's warmth. The Dragon Warrior's philosophy is as refined as his table manners. Tigress stood in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the moonlit courtyard. She stepped inside, her movements silent and precise. Her gaze swept over the broth bowls and settled on Naruto. Master Shifu wishes to assess the stability of our guest. Now. Po deflated slightly. Can't it wait? We're having a foundational moment. Broth-based bonding. The stability of two worlds likely cannot wait on your digestion, Po, Tigress said, though the harshness of her words was tempered by what might have been the faintest hint of fond exasperation. She looked back at Naruto. Well? Naruto stood up, the warm comfort from the broth already fading, replaced by the familiar thrum of anticipatory tension. He gave Po a nod. Thanks. For the food. Po waved. Go get M. Remember, less pushing, more noodle. The assessment did not take place in a training ground, but in the palace's Hall of Warriors, a vast, open space with a polished stone floor and statues of legendary fighters lining the walls. The moonlight streamed in through high, arched windows, painting everything in silver and shadow. Shifu stood in the center, his staff held behind his back. Viper, monkey, crane, and mantis were arrayed along the edges, observing. The atmosphere was solemn, judicial. Naruto Uzumaki, Shifu began, his voice echoing in the quiet hall. You represent an unknown variable. Before any instruction can be contemplated, we must understand the extent of the variable. You will perform a basic exercise of Chi. I don't know Chi, Naruto said, crossing his arms. I told you. I know chakra. The principal is a cousin, as Master Oogway said, Shifu replied, unblinking. You will stand in the center. You will close your eyes. You will not do anything. You will simply breathe, and attempt to feel the intrinsic energy of this place, the Chi that flows through the stone, the air, through us. Then, you will attempt to let your own energy resonate with it. Not command it. Not fight it. Feel it. It sounded deceptively simple. Like sitting meditation, which Naruto had always failed at spectacularly. He was a being of action, of movement. Sitting still and feeling was its own kind of torture. Gritting his teeth, he walked to the center of the hall. He could feel the eyes of the furious five on him, Viper's curious tilt, Monkey's playful scrutiny, Crane's watchful grace, Mantis's intense focus. He closed his eyes. At first, there was only the sound of his own heartbeat, the faint ache of his injuries. Then, slowly, he became aware of the presence of the others. Not through chakra sensing, but through something subtler. Tigress was a low, steady hum of disciplined power. Viper was a smooth, flowing current. Monkey was a playful, bouncing spark. They were each a distinct note in the quiet song of the hall. And beneath it all, there was the world itself. A deep, slow, pervasive vibration, like the heartbeat of the mountain. It was the Chi, it was everywhere, in everything. It didn't demand anything. It just was. Interesting, Kurama's voice murmured, less hostile, more analytical. It is not hostile. It is ambient. Like sunlight. It is not trying to suppress me. It is simply present. Yeah, well, my chakra doesn't like just being present, Naruto thought back. As he tried to relax, his own energy, conditioned by a lifetime of conflict, instinctively pushed back against the gentle pressure. His blue chakra flickered to life around him, not as a conscious act, but as a defensive reflex. It sputtered and crackled, a jagged, electric blue aura that clashed violently with the serene silver moonlight. A low growl emanated from his core. The hall's peaceful chi recoiled from the aggressive foreign energy. The air began to warp around him, heat shimmer style. He's fighting it, Mantis observed, his tiny voice loud in the tension. He doesn't know how not to, Viper whispered sadly. Naruto's breathing grew ragged. It felt like he was trying to hold two opposing magnets together. The more he tried to resonate, the more his chakra flared in protest. The whisker marks on his cheeks darkened. A single, rogue tail of red, fox-like chakra lashed out from his lower back, slamming into the polished floor and cracking it. Shifu's eyes narrowed. Enough. You are damaging the hall. Naruto's eyes snapped open, his chakra winking out. He was panting, sweat beading on his forehead. Frustration boiled over. I told you. I can't do your weird, feeling thing. My power isn't for feeling. It's for protecting. For fighting. And what are you fighting right now, except yourself? Shifu shot back, his voice like a whip crack. You are a storm in a teacup, threatening to shatter the vessel that holds you. Your very existence here is an act of violence against the natural order. The words were meant to be harsh, a test. But they landed on the raw nerve of Naruto's oldest fear, that he was, at his core, a destructive force. A weapon, not a person. The anger surged, hot and familiar. A deeper, redder chakra began to bleed through his pores. You think I don't know that? Naruto yelled, his voice echoing. I've spent my whole life trying to prove I'm more than the monster inside me. I've fought and bled and almost died to use this power for good. And now you tell me that just having it is a crime in your perfect, peaceful world? The single tail of red chakra solidified, lashing angrily. The furious five tensed, moving into defensive positions. The harmonious chi of the hall was now a discordant clash of serene silver and violent crimson. The monster is not separate from you, boy, Shifu said, advancing a step, his staff now held ready. Until you understand that, you will always be at war. And your war is tearing at the seams of my home. It was the wrong thing to say. The word home, spoken with such possessive, protective ferocity, while Naruto was stranded impossibly far from his own, was the final spark. Rasengan. He didn't aim it at Shifu. He couldn't. Instead, he blasted it into the empty space between them, a spiraling sphere of compressed, howling chakra that tore a furrow in the ancient stone floor and hurled shattered fragments into the air. The act of release drained the immediate anger, leaving behind a hollow, shameful echo. The red chakra receded. Naruto stood amidst the new damage, his chest heaving, looking at the destruction his frustration had wrought. He'd proven Shifu's point with devastating clarity. The hall was silent, save for the patter of falling stone dust. The furious five were poised, ready to subdue him. Shifu's expression was unreadable. Then, a slow, soft clapping echoed from the doorway. Po stood there, a half-eaten mooncake in his hand. He looked at the torn floor, at Naruto's despairing face, at the tense masters. He swallowed his bite. Okay, Po said, his voice unnervingly calm. So, the standing still and feeling thing? Not your move. Got it. Notes taken. He waddled into the hall, completely ignoring the tension. He walked right up to Naruto, who flinched, expecting condemnation. Instead, Po looked him straight in the eye. You're a doer. A fighter. I get it. So let's do something. Let's fight. A collective intake of breath came from the five. Puh. Are you insane? Crane hissed. Probably. Po chirped. But Master Shifu said he's my responsibility. So I'm taking responsibility. We're gonna spar. Right here, right now. Shifu's tail twitched. Puh, this is not a game. His power is destructive. Yep, Po agreed. And right now, it's a backed-up pipe waiting to burst. We gotta give it somewhere to go. A constructive outlet. We'll channel the storm into a really focused, powerful rain shower. Or something. He turned back to Naruto, falling into his signature, slightly wobbly, panda-style, stance. Come on. No clones. No glowy ball thingies. Just you and me. Hand to hand. Show me how you fight. Naruto stared, utterly baffled. This panda, who had just seen him lose control and blow a hole in the floor, wanted to spar. After advocating for letting go. But the offer was there. An outlet for the rage and confusion still boiling under his skin. A language he understood. He shifted into a basic shinobi taijutsu stance, low and centered. You sure about this? Poe's grin was fierce. The dragon warrior is always sure about snack time and questionable decisions. Let's go. Po moved first. It wasn't the blinding speed of a shinobi. It was a rolling, deceptive lunge that used his entire body mass as a weapon. Naruto ducked, aiming a sharp jab at Poe's midsection. His fist connected with a surprising solidity. It was like punching a sack of well-packed flour that also knew kung fu. Po absorbed the impact, spun with the force, and used the momentum to deliver a roundhouse kick that Naruto barely blocked. It was the strangest fight Naruto had ever been in. Poe's style was unorthodox, full of rolls, belly bounces, and seemingly clumsy recoveries that somehow positioned him perfectly for the next strike. He didn't have the lethal precision of a shinobi, he had a resilient, unpredictable flow. He was using his chi, Naruto realized. Not as a weapon, but as a cushion, a spring, a gyroscope. Naruto fought back with pure Konoha-style taijutsu, efficient, direct, aimed at pressure points and vulnerabilities. But Poe's body, suffused with that resilient chi, seemed to have fewer vulnerabilities. A strike that should have winded him just made him oof and roll with it, coming back with a paw strike that jarred Naruto's arm to the shoulder. They weren't trying to knock each other out. They were testing. Exploring. Naruto, falling back on instinct, feinted a high kick and went for a leg sweep. Po, off balance, toppled backwards. But instead of crashing down, he tucked into a ball, bounced off his own back, and launched feet first back at Naruto like a furry cannonball. Whoa! Naruto crossed his arms, taking the hit and skidding back across the smooth stone. He laughed, a short, surprised burst of sound. It was ridiculous. It was brilliant. See? Po said, bouncing back to his feet, not even winded. You're pushing. I'm rolling. Different paths, same mountain. The exercise, the sheer physicality of it, was working. The chaotic energy inside Naruto wasn't being suppressed, it was being used, channeled into movement, into the focus of the spar. The red chakra didn't flare. His own blue chakra settled into a steady, supportive hum around his limbs, enhancing his speed and strength without raging out of control. For the first time since arriving, his chakra and his body were in sync, not because he was forcing them, but because they had a job to do. He saw an opening, Po overextended after a spinning fist. Naruto moved in, aiming to lock his arm. But as he grabbed Poe's wrist, he didn't just feel fur and muscle. He felt it again, that warm, golden, all-encompassing energy. Poe's chi. And in that moment of contact, something shifted. Naruto didn't try to resist it or analyze it. He just felt it, as Shifu had instructed, but now through action, not stillness. It was deep, calm, and incredibly strong. It didn't fight his own spiky blue chakra. It flowed around it, like a river around a rock. And for a split second, Naruto unconsciously let his chakra do the same, not pushing against Poe's chi, but just being next to it. A pulse of visible energy, a brief, beautiful aurora of intertwined blue and gold, flashed at the point of their contact. It washed over the hall, gentle and warm. The cracked floor where Naruto's Rasengan had struck seemed to sigh. The shattered edges didn't heal, but the hostile, jagged energy left in the wound dissipated. Both combatants sprang back, staring at their own hands. The Furious Five were silent, stunned. Shifu's stern eyes were wide. Po broke the silence, his voice a whisper of awe. Dude, did you see that? We made a rainbow. Naruto looked from his hand to Poe's face, his own frustration and shame replaced by a dawning, incredible realization. He hadn't found balance by being still. He had found a hint of it by moving with someone else. By connecting. His way and Poe's way weren't opposites. They were just different entries to the same path. Shifu slowly lowered his staff. The judgment in his eyes was tempered by a spark of something new, reluctant, analytical respect. Humph. So. The storm can be guided. Not calmed, but directed. He looked at Po, and gave the smallest, almost imperceptible nod. Your method is unorthodox, Dragon Warrior. But it appears you have found the first step. He turned to leave, then paused. Clean this mess. Both of you. And Naruto Uzumaki, tomorrow, you will begin again. Not with feeling. With moving. But you will move here, within the confines of the palace. The valley is not ready for your storm. As Shifu and the silently thoughtful Furious Five filed out, Po clapped a heavy paw on Naruto's shoulder. Told you. Constructive outlet. Naruto looked at the cracked floor they now had to repair, at his own hands that had just harmonized for a fleeting second, and at the panda whose simple wisdom was turning his world upside down. He wasn't home. The wound in reality was still bleeding. But for the first time, he felt a flicker of something other than dread. He felt a possibility. Yeah, Naruto said, a real, tired smile touching his lips. Thanks, Pa. Don't thank me yet, Pa grinned, grabbing a broom from the corner and tossing another to Naruto. Wait till you see how we meditate while sweeping. It's all in the wrists. Very foundational. Chapter 3, The Rhythm of Stones. Dawn at the Jade Palace was a ceremony of mist and light. Silvery tendrils curled around the pagoda roofs, and the first rays of sun painted the training grounds in molten gold. For Naruto, however, the morning began not with ceremony, but with the grating scrape of a broom on stone. The key, Pa intoned with exaggerated solemnity, demonstrating a wide, circular sweeping motion, is in the wu-wei. The wu-wei? Naruto grumbled, pushing a pile of dust and debris from last night's incident. His muscles ached from the spar and the strange energetic discharge. His knuckles were raw. Wu-wei, Pa corrected, his sweeping becoming a slow, graceful dance. Action through inaction. Effortless effort. You don't fight the dirt. You just suggest to it that it would be happier over there. With a final flourish, he deposited a neat pile of dust by the steps. See? The broom is an extension of my chi, it's not work, it's flow. Naruto looked at his own broom, then at the jagged, raisin-scarred groove in the hall floor they'd partially filled with gravel and mortar. His work felt like exactly what it was, labor. Chore. Punishment. My chi doesn't want to sweep. My chi wants to figure out how to punch a hole back to my dimension. Pa stopped sweeping, leaning on his broomstick. You're thinking of the destination, not the journey. My dad always says, the secret ingredient to his secret ingredient soup is, nothing. You just have to believe it's special. It's the same with this. If you believe sweeping is a drag, it's a drag. If you believe it's part of your kung fu, bam. Foundational training. It was impossible to stay irritated at the panda for long. His optimism was a force of nature, gentler than Naruto's but just as persistent. Naruto sighed, trying to mimic Poe's circular motion. It felt silly. But as he focused on the rhythm, swish, step, swish, rather than the frustration, something happened. The constant, buzzing hum of his chakra, usually a background noise of readiness, began to settle into the rhythm. It wasn't harmonizing with the world's chi, it was simply syncing with a simple, repetitive task. The storm within quieted to a breeze. He was so focused on this minor internal shift that he didn't notice the approaching presence until she spoke. The mortar needs to be mixed with more water. It's cracking. Tigress stood a few feet away, arms crossed. She held 2 wooden buckets filled with water from the courtyard well. She placed them down without a sound. Naruto straightened, wary. Thanks. She didn't leave. Her amber eyes studied him, then the repaired floor. Your energy is less jagged this morning. Sweeping meditation, Pa offered cheerfully. It's a game changer. Tigress ignored him, her gaze fixed on Naruto. Shifu believes your instinct is for conflict. That you can only understand through opposition. I am not sure he is wrong. But yesterday, in the spar, for a moment, it was not opposition. It was synchronization. She said the word as if it were a foreign, technical term. It was an accident, Naruto muttered, stirring the dry mortar with a trowel. In Kung Fu, there are no accidents, Tigress said, a mantra she clearly lived by. Only unpreparedness meeting opportunity. That flash of energy, it purified the residual discord in the stone. That is not a destructive power. She paused, choosing her words with the precision of a surgeon. Master Oogway wishes for you to learn chi, but you are not a blank scroll. You are a scroll already written in a violent, powerful language. Perhaps you cannot learn a new alphabet by staring at it. Perhaps you must learn to translate. Naruto looked up, intrigued despite himself. Translate how? By doing what you already do. But here. With us. She nodded toward the main training ground, where Monkey and Crane were practicing a complex, flowing duet of staff and wing. You fought Pa and found a moment of resonance. Fight me. Not to prove your strength. Not to vent your anger. Fight me with the intent to understand my energy, as I will seek to understand yours. Poe's eyes went wide. Whoa. Tigress, you never spar with new people. Especially not glowy, dimension-hopping new people. That's, like, advanced-level responsibility. Which is why you will observe, Pa, Tigress said, her tone leaving no room for argument. You saw a bridge form. You must learn to see how it is built, stone by stone. She turned back to Naruto. Well? The challenge was clear. This wasn't pose-friendly, bouncing clash. This was a test from the palace's most disciplined, lethal warrior. A shinobi instinct roared to life: assess the threat, find the weakness, win. But another, newer instinct, born of that flash of gold and blue, whispered, listen. He put down the trowel. Okay. The training ground was a different arena in the daylight. The pool of sacred tears, a circular reflecting pool, shimmered calmly at its center. Tigress led him to a flat expanse of packed earth nearby. Monkey and Crane stopped their practice, moving to the periphery with interested expressions. Mantis appeared on Crane's head, and Viper slithered up to join them. An audience of masters. Tigress took her stance. It was nothing like pose. It was a thing of beautiful, terrifying efficiency, every muscle coiled, weight perfectly distributed, a stillness that was somehow more imposing than any movement. She was a blade sheathed in fur. No transformations, she stated. No foreign energy constructs. Only the power that moves your body from within. And your intent to understand. Naruto nodded, falling into his own stance. He pushed Kurama's chakra down, buried the instinct for Rasengan, and focused on the basic chakra enhancement that fueled his taijutsu. It still felt like lighting a fuse under his skin, but a smaller one. Tigress moved. It was a straight line, the fastest, most direct attack possible, a lunging strike aimed at his center. It was a test of speed and defense. Naruto pivoted, deflecting the blow with a forearm block. The impact was shocking. It wasn't just physical strength, it was focused, penetrating. It felt like being hit by a spear wrapped in silk. He didn't counter immediately. He focused on the feel of her energy, as she'd asked. It was a humming, tightly contained vibration in her strike, a chi so disciplined it was like diamond, incredibly hard, incredibly clear. She flowed into a combination, strike, strike, low sweep. Naruto dodged and weaved, his shinobi agility keeping him just ahead. But he was reacting, not understanding. Her chi was a closed book. Open it, he told himself. Stop blocking and listen. On her next advance, a whipping tail strike aimed at his legs, Naruto didn't jump. He dropped, one hand planted on the ground, and took the blow on his thigh. Pain flared, sharp and clean. But in that moment of contact, he didn't retreat into his own chakra. He held his energy open, a receiver instead of a shield. And he felt it. The diamond-hard chi wasn't just rigid. At its core, driving its immense focus, was a white-hot core of passion. A dedication so absolute it burned. It wasn't anger. It was a forge fire of purpose. To protect, to excel, to honor the legacy of Kung Fu. It was, he realized with a jolt, not so different from his own burning desire to protect Konoha, to become Hokage. Her discipline was the shape her fire took. His was, still an explosion. The insight lasted a fraction of a second. Tigress, sensing his momentary openness, flowed up and over him, a paw coming down in an axe kick. Naruto rolled, the strike cratering the earth where his head had been. He came up, not with a counterattack, but with a new stance. He didn't try to mimic her tiger style. He couldn't. Instead, he tried to channel the insight. He let his chakra rise, not in a defensive spike, but in a warmer, brighter flow, imitating not her chi's form, but its intensity of purpose. When he moved next, it wasn't with pose-rolling adaptability or his own usual aggressive bursts. It was with a sharper, more focused intent. A straight punch, chakra focused to a point at his knuckles, not to destroy, but to meet. Tigress's eyes widened a fraction. She didn't block, she parried, redirecting the force with a circular motion of her own paw. Their energies didn't clash and spark this time. They slid, a hot knife through butter, a sizzle of blue against gold that produced not a destructive flash, but a brief, resonant chime, like a bell being struck. They broke apart, both breathing heavily. The watching masters were utterly still. You felt it, Tigress stated, no question in her voice. It's a fire, Naruto said, looking at his fist. Yours. A controlled burn. And yours is a wildfire, she replied, but the criticism was gone, replaced by analysis. But a wildfire can be shaped by the wind, by the lay of the land. You began to shape it. You gave it a direction, not just a destination. For the first time, something resembling approval touched her features. That is the first lesson of the tiger: ferocity must have a focus, or it consumes itself. She gave a short, sharp bow of her head. The spar was over. As she turned to leave, she paused. The mortar. More water. It is cracking because it is too rigid. It cannot bond with the stone. Naruto watched her go, the lesson settling into him more deeply than any of Poe's parables. He had translated a piece of her language. He had understood a fragment of this world's power by connecting it to his own. Pa bounded over, buzzing with excitement. Did you see that? You went ding. It was like respectful combat. That's a huge step up from smashy smashy. But Naruto's attention was pulled away. A wave of dizziness washed over him, accompanied by a deep, internal tug, a sensation like a fishhook in his soul. He stumbled, grabbing Po's shoulder for support. Whoa, dude, you okay? Too much awesome. Brat. Kurama's voice was a sudden, alert growl in his mind. The connection, it's not just here. It's pulling both ways. The world seemed to dip and sway. Not the physical world, but the layer beneath it. The sickly green pulse from the spirit realm gateway, visible from the training ground, flared in time with the tug in his gut. And for a fleeting, horrifying second, Naruto's senses flipped. He wasn't standing in the Jade Palace. He was seeing through a haze of pain and rage. A dark, cavernous space. The glint of a Rinnegan. The sensation of a colossal, draining pressure, like his very soul was being siphoned through a pinhole. A voice, cold and determined, just a little more. The resonance is establishing the bridge. He is the anchor. Pull. Then, a different presence. Vast, sleepy, and aggrieved. Not Kurama. Something older, stranger, a consciousness of stone and endless sky, being painfully roused from slumber. A deep, earth-shaking grumble of protest that echoed in Naruto's bones. The vision snapped. He was on his knees in the training ground, gasping, Po's paws on his shoulders, looking at him with real fear. Naruto. Talk to me. What happened? They're using me, Naruto choked out, cold terror seeping through him. Someone in my world. They're using the tear, using my connection to Kurama, like a rope. They're pulling on it. And they're pulling on something here. Master Shifu was suddenly there, having seen the episode from his porch. His face was grave. What did you see? Naruto described it, the Rinnegan, the draining, the ancient, angry presence. Shifu's whiskers drooped. The great stone dragon, he whispered, the color draining from his fur. The ancient guardian spirit of the spirit realm's deepest gorge. It has slept for 10,000 years. If someone is trying to pull it awake, to drag it through the tear, it would tear both worlds apart in the process, Uguay's voice came. The old master stood beside the pool, his reflection wavering in the water. He looked older, wearier than Naruto had seen him. The malice in your world seeks a weapon. It has found the largest one imaginable in ours. And you, Naruto Uzumaki, are the tether they are using to reel it in. The simplicity of the horror was staggering. He wasn't just a castaway. He was a living anchor point for an invasion. His very existence here was a bridge for something that wanted to devour both sides. We have to sever it, Naruto said, desperation clawing at his throat. Cut my chakra off, seal me, something. To sever the tether carelessly would be to snap the rope while it is under immense strain, Uguay said, shaking his head slowly. The backlash could shatter your spirit and collapse the gateway entirely, swallowing the valley of peace into the void between. So what do we do? Pa asked, his voice small for the first time. Uguay looked at Naruto, his eyes holding a depth of sorrow and resolve. We must make the tether stronger. Silence. Stronger? Naruto echoed, incredulous. But that's what they want. They want a weak tether they can pull on, Uguay corrected. A frayed rope that will break their world free from ours, dragging the dragon with it. We must make the connection not a rope, but a bridge. A structure of balance, of two-way flow, so strong that it cannot be pulled one way without consent from the other. You must not run from your connection to this world, Naruto. You must embrace it. You must root yourself here, in its chi, so deeply that to pull you is to pull the mountain itself. The scale of the task was monumental. He had to achieve a spiritual integration masters spent lifetimes seeking, and he had to do it before forces in his world succeeded in using him as a cosmic fishing line. Shifu let out a long breath. Then there is no more time for sweeping meditation or careful sparring. He looked at Naruto, his earlier sternness replaced by the grim focus of a general preparing for a siege. Your training begins in earnest. Now. You will work with each of the Furious Five. You will learn the nature of their chi, the tiger's focus, the monkey's trickery, the crane's grace, the viper's fluidity, the mantis's precision. You will find the echo of each within your own chaotic power. You will build your bridge, stone by stone, not in years, but in days. He turned his gaze to the ominous, pulsing gateway. And we will prepare our defenses. For when they pull again, and they will find not a sleeping dragon, but a awakened bridge, held by a warrior who belongs to both worlds. Or, he added, the weight of the alternative hanging in the air, we will all fall together. Naruto rose to his feet, the last of the dizziness gone, replaced by a cold, clear certainty. The path was no longer about finding a way home. It was about making this place a home worth defending, and mastering himself to become its guardian. The ultimate test wasn't a battle against a single enemy, but a race against time to achieve an impossible harmony. He met Poe's worried eyes, then Tigress's determined gaze, and finally, Uguay's ancient, knowing one. Okay, Naruto Uzumaki said, the weight of two worlds settling onto his shoulders, familiar and terrifying. Teach me everything. Chapter 4, The Five-Fold Path. The Jade Palace became a crucible. There was no gentle acclamation, no gradual unveiling of mysteries. Time was a luxury shattered by the vision of the Rinnegan and the spectral tug of the great stone dragon. Naruto's training became an accelerated, brutal, and bewildering immersion into the five-fold path of chi. He began with Mantis. The tiny master met him in the courtyard's most tranquil corner, a small rock garden raked into perfect concentric waves around a single, towering stone. Big power, Mantis chirped, his voice a high, precise buzz. He gestured to Naruto, then to the massive rock. Like big hammer. Good for smashing. Not good for this. With a movement too fast to see, he struck the center of the towering stone. There was no sound of impact, no crack. But a perfect, hair-thin fissure appeared from top to bottom, and the stone silently split into two perfectly equal halves. Naruto stared. It wasn't about force. It was about the placement of force, the pinpoint focus of immense energy into an infinitesimal point. Your chakra is all wham. Mantis shouted, throwing his tiny arms wide. I need it to be tick. He brought his praying hands together with a barely audible click. Find the smallest point. The one weak spot in everything. The space between the thoughts. Hit there. The lesson was infuriating. Naruto would focus his chakra to a point on his fingertip, visualizing a microscopic Rasengan, and strike a practice stone. It would explode into gravel. Mantis would sigh. No, no, no. You are a thunderclap. I need you to be a needle. The power is not in the explosion, it is in the piercing. Feel the stone's chi, where is it lazy? Where is it brittle? Listen. For hours, Naruto listened to inanimate rocks. He felt their dense, slow, sleepy chi. He learned that Mantis's chi was like a scalpel, a vibrating, hyper-aware energy that mapped weaknesses in a flash. Naruto's chakra, by contrast, was a sledgehammer with a microscope taped to it. He could see the weak point, but his instinct was to obliterate the entire area around it. It was during one of these exercises, sweat stinging his eyes, that the second tug came. It was stronger. A vicious yank deep in his solar plexus that doubled him over. The world didn't just sway, it ripped. The serene rock garden vanished. He was back in the dark cavern, but the view was clearer. He saw Sasuke, his Rinnegan bleeding light, one hand on the Uchiha stone tablet, the other outstretched as if gripping an invisible chain. Zetsu's form oozed beside him, whispering. The anchor holds. The dragon stirs. Its chi is vast, perfect for the ghetto statue. And he felt the dragon. Not a vague presence, but a mountain range-sized awareness, grinding against the pull. A deep, resonant thought rumble echoed through the connection, who dares disturb the deep stone? The backlash was immediate. A wave of pure, petrifying energy, the dragon's reflexive ire, surged back along the connection. In the cavern, the stone tablet cracked with a sound like a continent breaking. Sasuke was hurled backwards, his Rinnegan dimming for a moment. In the rock garden, Naruto screamed as the alien energy, the essence of primordial stone and aggrieved spirit, flooded into him. His skin grayed, cracking like dry earth. He felt himself beginning to turn to stone from the inside out. Mantis was a blur of emerald light. He didn't try to block the energy, he couldn't. Instead, he became a pinpoint of focused intervention. He landed on Naruto's neck, his tiny claws not piercing the skin, but vibrating at a frequency that made Naruto's own chaotic chakra sing. It was a targeted, precise disruption, a needle of chi striking the exact point where the petrifying energy was attempting to crystallize his meridians. The stone-like cracks halted, receded. Naruto collapsed, gasping, his body feeling like shattered porcelain hastily glued together. Shifu and Po arrived at a run. It's getting worse, Shifu stated, fear cutting through his usual stoicism as he saw the fading gray patches on Naruto's skin. The dragon is angry, Naruto croaked. And they felt it. They know it's working. Po helped him sit up, his big paws surprisingly gentle. Dude, you're turning into a lawn ornament. Not the look. There was no time to recover. The lesson had changed. Survival was the curriculum. He moved to Crane. The graceful master's domain was the air, the high platforms and swaying ropes above the courtyard. His chi was light, lifting, full of elegant arcs and sweeping redirections. "You are earthbound," Crane said, his voice serene as he balanced on a pole no thicker than a reed. "Your energy is heavy, like your heart. To build a bridge, you must be able to rise above the pull. You must find levity." Naruto's attempt at levity was to flood his feet with chakra and try to run up a pillar. He made it 3 steps before the heavy, aggressive nature of his power caused the wood to splinter under him and he crashed down. Crane swooped, catching him with his feet before he hit the ground, a display of effortless strength and control. "No. You are not commanding the air. You are accepting its support. Your chakra pushes down. It must learn to diffuse. To become like a dandelion seed." He taught Naruto a breathing pattern, long inhales, longer exhales, synchronized with the gentle updrafts in the courtyard. He made him stand on the wobbling platform and simply feel the lift of the wind, the subtle buoyancy of the world's chi. Naruto, used to chakra adhering him to surfaces by force, struggled. His energy instinctively clamped down, rooting him in fear. But during a meditation, feeling the third, subtler tug, a constant, draining pressure now, like a slow bleed, he panicked. He lost his balance. Instead of falling, he pushed chakra out of his feet in a burst, trying to propel himself to safety. The result was a violent, uncontrolled launch that sent him rocketing not up, but diagonally, straight toward the palace's sacred bell tower. Crane shot after him, a streak of white and red. He didn't tackle him. He flew beside him, his wing brushing Naruto's back. Crane's chi washed over him, not stopping him, but encircling him. It was an energy of currents and eddies. Naruto felt his own desperate, rocket-like chakra being gently shepherded, its trajectory bent, its force dissipated into a dozen harmless spirals. He landed in a heap on a rooftop, unharmed, next to a softly alighting crane. "You see?" Crane said, preening a feather. "You do not fight the current. You use it. Your power is a wild river. I do not dam it. I canalize it. A bridge must withstand storms, Naruto. It must bend, not break." Viper's lesson was in the art of yielding. They met in the lush palace gardens, where her sinuous form seemed part of the winding streams and curling vines. "You are all hard angles and sudden stops," Viper whispered, her body flowing around a stone in a seamless loop. "My chi knows no angles. It knows only curves. Resistance is met not with opposition, but with guidance. The stronger the pull, the more you must become like water around it." She had him try to grab her. He moved with shinobi speed, his hands striking like snakes themselves. But Viper was never where his force landed. She coiled around his wrist, his arm, her touch light but inescapable, her chi a slippery, relentless flow that redirected his momentum until he was tied in gentle, confounding knots. It was infuriating. It was like trying to grapple a waterfall. "You are trying to grasp me," she said, her head hovering near his ear as he struggled. "Do not grasp. Feel. Move with me." The 4th tug came during this exercise. It was different, not a yank, but a twist. A sickening, spiraling pull that sought not to drag him linearly, but to wring his spirit like a wet cloth. It was accompanied by a new, chilling sensation from his world, a hunger. A vast, empty, wooden hunger. The ghetto statue. It was awake, and it was feeding on the energy siphoned through him. Naruto convulsed, his chakra spasming in response, lashing out in sharp, jagged spikes. Viper didn't recoil. She embraced it. Literally. She wrapped her long body around him in a coil that was not constricting, but containing. Her fluid chi became a living conduit, a spiral that matched the twisted pull. She didn't absorb his chaotic energy, she gave it a path to flow through her, into the ground, into the garden, dispersing the malignant twist into the peaceful, living chi of 1,000 plants. The flowers wilted for a moment, then bloomed again, brighter. The energy was transformed, not destroyed. She held him until the spasm passed, her calm, unblinking gaze a lifeline. "A bridge must have flexibility," she whispered. "Or it will snap in the wind." Monkey's training was the most disorienting. It was chaos with a purpose. Play as warfare. "You're too serious." Monkey chattered, swinging from a beam by his tail and flicking a pebble at Naruto's head. "All, my destiny, 2 worlds. Lighten up. The best defense is making them miss. And the best way to make them miss is to be where they don't expect." He was a whirlwind of mockery, trickery, and impossible acrobatics. His chi was mischievous, unpredictable, a bouncing, echoing energy that seemed to come from 3 places at once. He taught Naruto to feint not just with his body, but with his energy. To let a flare of chakra burst from his left hand while moving right. To create a brief, noisy chakra illusion, a skill he'd rarely used, as a distraction. It was here, in the chaos, that Naruto had his first, conscious breakthrough. Monkey had him cornered against the cliff face, pelting him with acorns and chattering insults. The constant, background drain of the tether was a teeth-grinding hum. Naruto felt the familiar rise of frustration, the red heat of Kurama's impatience. He wanted to blast Monkey away with a wave of force. No, he told himself, Viper's lesson in his mind. Don't oppose. Monkey's energy was all about misdirection. So misdirect. As Monkey launched himself feet first for a final, playful kick, Naruto didn't block. He didn't dodge. He focused on the mantis-like pinpoint, not of attack, but of emission. He released a tiny, compressed puff of chakra from his palm, not at Monkey, but at the cliff face just above him. It was a minuscule explosion, no bigger than a firecracker. But it startled Monkey, disrupting his trajectory for a split second. In that second, Naruto moved with Crane's lesson, not with a heavy step, but with a diffused, light push off the ground. He flowed past Monkey, not in a straight line, but in a curving arc Viper had shown him. He ended up behind the Simian master, not with a victorious strike, but standing there, breathing hard. Monkey landed, turned, and stared. His playful grin widened into something real and impressed. Hey! You didn't just take it. You didn't just smash. You improvised. You used the tools. That's it. A bridge isn't one material, kid. It's wood, rope, stone, cunning. You're starting to build. It was a tiny victory. But it was his. Not Kurama's. Not the Nine-Tails Chakra's. His. A synthesis of what he was learning. He returned to Tigress for the final integration. They did not spar. They stood facing the ominous spirit realm gateway, its pulse now a constant, sickly throb in time with the tug in his soul. The five are not just techniques, Tigress said, her voice low and steady. They are aspects of a whole. The mantis's precision finds the dragon's weakness. The crane's grace lifts you above the pull. The viper's fluidity disperses its anger. The monkey's trickery confuses those who would use you. And the tiger, she looked at him, her eyes burning with that familiar, focused fire. The tiger's ferocity gives you the will to stand at the center of the storm and hold. She placed a paw on his chest, over his heart. You must become the junction. Not a battleground where chakra and chi war, but a meeting place. A forge. Let their energies flow into you. Let your chakra flow out to meet them. Do not try to be us. Be Naruto Uzumaki, who has learned from the mantis, the crane, the viper, the monkey, and the tiger. He closed his eyes. He felt the constant, draining pull, the Rinnegan's hook. He felt the deep, rumbling, angry presence of the stone dragon, like a tectonic plate shifting in its sleep. And within himself, he felt the storm. But now, he saw the components of the storm. The hammer blow force could be a mantis's pinpoint. The wild surges could be Crane's currents. The defensive spikes could be Viper's coils. The explosive anger could be Monkey's misdirection. And the burning, unyielding core of his will to protect, that was the tiger's focus. He didn't suppress. He didn't force harmony. He simply allowed. He let the five lessons exist within his chakra, not as separate things, but as colors mixing on a palette. A visible aura slowly kindled around him. It was not the pure blue of his chakra, nor the gold of chi, nor the red of Kurama. It was a swirling, luminous silver, shot through with hints of emerald, crimson, white, azure, and amber. It was unstable, flickering like a guttering candle, but it was there. A new thing. The silver aura touched the malignant energy radiating from the gateway. There was no violent clash. The sickly green light seemed to thin. To hesitate. It was as if a door had been opened, diluting the concentration of poison in the room. For the first time since the tugs began, the constant, grinding pressure in his gut lessened. Not a lot. But perceptibly. He wasn't just a passive anchor anymore. He was becoming a filter. Puh, who had been watching the entire grueling process with a mix of worry and awe, let out a low whistle. Whoa. Sparkly. Shifu, standing beside Oogway, felt a tremor of something he hadn't felt in days, a flicker of hope. He is not simply resisting the connection. He is complicating it. Oogway nodded, a faint, weary smile on his face. The rope is becoming a net. A net is harder to pull than a rope. And if woven with care, it can catch the fisherman. That night, as Naruto lay exhausted in the small guest chamber they had given him, he felt the difference. The tether was still there, a thin, cold line running through his soul to a distant, hungry darkness. But around that line, woven through his very being, was a new latticework. It was fragile, nascent, but it was his. A bridge under construction, anchored not just in his chakra, but in the lessons of 5 masters, in the warmth of a panda's friendship, and in his own unbreakable, evolving will. He looked out the window at the pulsing green scar in the night sky. You're pulling on me, Sasuke, he thought, the name a sharp pain in his heart. Or whoever's behind this. But you're not just pulling on the Ninetales anymore. You're pulling on the Dragon Warrior's brother. You're pulling on the student of the 5. You're pulling on a bridge. Keep pulling. See what happens. Chapter 5, The Uninvited Guest. The newfound, fragile harmony was short-lived. It lasted precisely 3 days. In those 3 days, Naruto's silver-swirled aura grew steadier. He could now sweep the courtyard, under Poe's enthusiastic supervision, not with grudging labor, but with a flowing, crane-like grace that made the chore almost meditative. He could split a practice stone not into gravel, but into clean, mantis-like halves about half the time. The constant, draining tug from the other side was now a distant, unpleasant hum, muffled by the latticework of integrated chi he was building within himself. He was learning to be a filter, a diffuser. But a filter can only handle so much poison before it clogs. The crisis arrived not with another spiritual yank, but with a physical tear. It happened during a joint training session with Poe and Monkey in the forest of whispering bamboo, a tranquil grove on the palace grounds where the stalks chimed softly in the wind. Monkey was demonstrating how to use the environment as an extension of one's mischief, leaping from stalk to stalk without bending them. See? It's all in the bounce. Monkey chattered. You don't land, you kiss the bamboo and push off. Your chakra's like a clumsy ox. Make it a butterfly. Naruto, perched awkwardly on a thick stalk, was trying to diffuse his chakra through his feet as Crane taught, to be light. He was failing, but the bamboo was merely groaning, not snapping. Po watched from below, munching on bamboo shoots of his own. He's getting it. Po said around a mouthful. Look at that, determined hovering. It was then the air in the center of the grove began to congeal. The gentle chiming of the bamboo stopped dead. The light didn't dim so much as it was sucked into a single point 3 feet above the ground. A pinprick of absolute void appeared, ringed by the familiar, hateful crimson and black of Naruto's initial arrival energy, but this was not his. This was deliberate, malignant. What in the 10 hot sauces? Po muttered, dropping his snack. The pinprick dilated with a sound like tearing canvas. It wasn't a clean hole into another world. It was a jagged, bleeding rift, oozing a spiritual pus that was the antithesis of the grove's peaceful chi. From it, a figure stepped, or rather, oozed. It was a being of dripping, shifting black clay, vaguely humanoid but horribly unfinished. It had no face, only a smooth, blank expanse punctuated by a single, glowing ringed eye, the Rinnegan pattern, but dull, a cheap imitation. It stood awkwardly, as if its bones were made of wet rope, and a low, wet gurgle emanated from its core. From its form, tendrils of the same black substance pulsed, drinking in the grove's chi and corrupting it on contact, turning vibrant green leaves to brittle ash. A white zetsu, but wrong, Naruto breathed, horror icing his veins. He knew these creatures. Akatsuki foot soldiers. But this one was different. It wasn't just a plant-human hybrid. It was a hybrid of something else, infused with the discordant energy of the tear, a literal piece of the malignant bridging attempt given form. It was a scout. A probe made from the sickness between the worlds. Monkey dropped from the bamboo, landing in a defensive crouch beside Po. Okay, ugly. Party crashers get bounced. The Zetsu probe's head rotated smoothly towards Naruto. The single Rinnegan eye pulsed. The wet gurgle formed a word, Anchor. It lunged. Its movement was all wrong, not a step, but a sudden, elastic elongation of its leg, a lashing whip of black clay aimed to ensnare Naruto's ankle. Naruto reacted on shinobi instinct. He pushed off the bamboo, flipping backwards. But his movement, still tinged with his attempt at Crane's grace, was a half-second too slow. The clay whip wrapped around his calf. Icy cold, deeper than temperature, seeped through his orange pants. It was the draining pull, made physical. He felt his newly balanced energy being sucked, not along the distant tether, but directly into this monstrosity. He yelled, not in pain, but in violation. He formed a Rasengan in his free hand, the silver swirls in his aura flaring with angry blue and red. He drove it down towards the tendril. No, wait. Po cried, but it was too late. The Rasengan struck the black clay. It didn't cut it. It didn't blast it apart. The clay absorbed the spiraling energy, swelling at the point of impact, its gurgle rising to a sound of grotesque satisfaction. The Rinnegan eye glowed brighter. The thing was feeding on his chakra. It's made of the imbalance, Kurama snarled in his mind. Your unrefined power is a feast for it. Monkey was a blur of brown fur. He didn't attack the probe directly. He bounced off a bamboo stalk, ricocheted off another, and delivered a sharp, pinpoint kick to the joint of the clay tendril, where it met the main body. It wasn't a powerful blow, but it was perfectly timed and placed. The tendril shivered, its grip loosening for a microsecond. Pa saw his opening. He didn't charge. He rolled. He became a giant, furry boulder that crashed into the probe's midsection. There was no finesse, only overwhelming, resilient mass and Po's own unwavering, golden chi. The impact didn't hurt the creature so much as displace it. It was knocked sprawling, the tendril tearing free from Naruto's leg. Naruto stumbled back, his calf numb. He looked at the Rasengan that had failed. He looked at Po's simple, effective roll. He looked at Monkey's precise distraction. The probe clambered to its feet, its form rippling. Where Pa had struck, the black clay was momentarily stained with a patch of shimmering gold that sizzled and fought against the corruption. Chi heard it, where raw chakra had fed it. Of course, Naruto thought, the lesson crashing into him. This thing is born of the clash. It thrives on discord. Harmony is its poison. Pa. Monkey, he shouted, his mind racing, adapting. Don't hit it with force. Hit it with peace. Confuse it. The Zetsu probe charged again, this time sprouting two more whip-like arms from its torso. Monkey cackled, leaping into the air. Confuse it? My specialty. As the arms lashed out, Monkey didn't dodge in a straight line. He created afterimages with his speed, not with chakra, but with pure, mischievous agility. He chattered nonsense, threw handfuls of dirt, poked at the bamboo to make it rustle elsewhere. The probe's head swiveled, its single eye struggling to track the chaos. Its strikes became wild, unfocused. Pa saw the pattern. He began to move not with linear attacks, but with wide, circular, flowing motions, awkward attempts at viper's style. He weaved between the lashing arms, his dense body and calm chi acting like a rolling stone in a polluted stream, disrupting the probe's rhythm without giving it a clear target to drain. Naruto watched, his shinobi mind analyzing. The probe was strong, adaptable, and fed on aggressive energy. But it was dumb. It was a tool, a homing beacon for the anchor. It couldn't handle unpredictability or pure, unshakable calm. He took a deep breath. He let go of the Rasengan. He let go of the urge to smash. He focused inward, on the lattice. He called not on the tiger's ferocity, but on the collective lesson, the mantis's pinpoint, not for attack, but for perception. He let his silver-swirled senses expand, seeking the flaw, the core of the discord within the creature. There. A knot of swirling, violent energy deep in its chest, a crude parody of a heart, where the Rinnegan's connection was most concentrated. It was a mess of conflicting signals, a screech of stolen chakra and corrupted chi. Naruto moved. Not with Crane's full grace, but with a lighter step. Not with Viper's full fluidity, but with a looser dodge. He flowed around a wild swing, his movements an echo of the five masters. He closed in. The probe sensed him, the anchor. It forgot Monkey and Pa, coiling all its limbs to strike at him. It was a cage of black, dripping clay closing in. Now, Naruto called on the tiger. Not for anger, but for focus. A single, clear line of intent, purge. He didn't form a Rasengan. He formed something else. He held out his hand, and instead of a spiraling sphere of destruction, he focused his silver-swirled energy, his chakra tempered by chi, into a single, brilliant point of light on his fingertip. It wasn't hot. It was clarifying. It was the opposite of the probe's chaotic screech, it was a single, pure note. He thrust his finger forward, not at the probe's body, but at the discordant knot in its core. His fingertip touched the black clay. There was no explosion. There was a cleansing. The brilliant point of light bloomed within the creature. The black clay didn't shatter, it unraveled. The corrupting energy dissolved, not in a blast, but in a sigh. The stolen chi and chakra within it released in a harmless, shimmering wave that washed through the bamboo grove, making the ash-strewn leaves flutter as if in a fresh breeze. The Rinnegan eye winked out. The clay lost its cohesion, collapsing into a puddle of inert, gray sludge that then evaporated into mist. Silence returned, deeper than before. The jagged rift in the air sealed itself with a faint pop, leaving only a scar of dead, scentless air. Pa, Monkey, and Naruto stood panting in the suddenly vibrant grove. The bamboo began to chime again, tentatively. Dude, Pa whispered, staring at the spot where the probe had vanished. What was that? A finger of friendship? Monkey offered, equally awed. A really pointy go away. Naruto looked at his hand. The silver aura was gone, and he felt utterly drained, as if he'd run 100 miles. But the draining was different. It wasn't the sickening pull of the tether. It was the exhaustion of having created something new. I don't know. I just knew smashing it would make it stronger. So I tried to untie the knot. Po's eyes were huge. You did a kung fu thing. A new kung fu thing. You wuxi-fingered it, whatever that was. The victory was hollow. The implications were terrifying. If a probe could come through, something bigger could follow. The rift had been small, temporary. The next one might not be. Their return to the main courtyard was met by the entire assembled palace. Shifu took one look at their expressions and the lingering, cleansed energy on Naruto, and his whiskers drooped. It has begun. Naruto explained what happened, the Zetsu probe, its nature, its weakness. Oogway listened, his face grave. The sickness seeks to diagnose its own condition. It sent a cell to test the body. And the body, he looked at Naruto with a profound, weary pride, responded with an antibody. They know I'm here. They know I'm changing, Naruto said. That thing called me Anchor. They'll send more. They'll send worse. Then we must prepare for the infection to become a fever, Shifu said, his voice iron. The Furious Five will double their patrols of the spirit realm border. You and Naruto must accelerate his training. He found a key today. He must learn to forge a weapon from it. That night, in the Hall of Warriors, Naruto stood before Oogway and Shifu. The five were arrayed behind them. Stood at Naruto's side, a solid, reassuring presence. What you did today, Oogway began, was not a technique of the five. It was a synthesis. You have begun to weave your own tapestry. This point of light, it is the beginning of a new discipline. A discipline born of two worlds. You must name it, to give it power. Naruto thought. It wasn't a Rasengan. It wasn't a chi strike. It was something in between. Something that sought not to destroy the enemy, but to dissolve the conflict itself. It was the opposite of the Akatsuki's severing, discordant jutsu. Chikai no waza, he said softly. The words felt right in his mouth. The technique of reconciliation. A murmur passed through the five. The name held weight. Reconciliation, Viper mused. Not a bad foundation. But one finger point isn't gonna stop an army of those clay freaks, Mantis pointed out. No, Naruto agreed, a fierce light returning to his eyes. So I need to learn to do more than poke. I need to learn to push with it. To shield with it. To make the whole bridge out of it. Shifu nodded, a plan solidifying in his mind. Then your training changes again. You will no longer just learn our ways. You will teach us yours. We will spar against your Chikai energy. We will pressure it, test its limits. You will learn to sustain it, to shape it. And we, he looked at the Furious Five, will learn how to fight alongside it. For the next breach will not be a probe. It will be an invasion. The mood in the hall shifted from dread to a grim, determined readiness. The peace of the Valley of Peace was over. They were now a garrison preparing for a war on two fronts, one against a physical incursion from a tear in reality, and the other against the spiritual corrosion that sought to use their world as a weapon. As they dispersed, Pa nudged Naruto. So. Technique of reconciliation. Sounds fancy. Less smashy, more huggy. But with finger pokes. Naruto managed a tired smile. Something like that. I like it, Pa said firmly. My style's all about the awesomeness within. Yours is gonna be about the peace within the storm. We're like two different kinds of soup that go really well together. For the first time since he'd fallen, Naruto felt not like a lost shinobi or a dangerous anchor, but like part of a team with a clear, if terrifying, mission. He had a new technique, born of his unique plight. He had masters to teach and to learn from. He had a brother in a panda. And he had a message to send back through the tear to whoever was pulling the strings. Your anchor is becoming a foundation. Your weapon is becoming a healer. Keep pulling. We're waiting. Chapter 6, The Forge of Chikai. The Hall of Warriors ceased to be a hall. It became a crucible, a laboratory, a dojo of desperate innovation. The elegant statues of past masters looked down upon a scene that would have baffled them, a whiskered, orange-clad human at the center, surrounded by 5 animal kung fu masters and a panda, all engaged in a chaotic, beautiful, and often painful experiment. Naruto named it the Chikai no Waza, the technique of reconciliation. But a name was just a seed. They had to make it grow. The first step was learning to summon the silver-swirled energy at will, not just in moments of crisis. This proved harder than any Rasengan. The Rasengan was a defined shape, a specific chakra rotation. Chikai was a state. It was the delicate, conscious maintenance of the internal lattice, the focused pinpoint of mantis, the flowing grace of crane, the yielding coils of viper, the mischievous adaptability of monkey, and the ferocious will of the tiger, all held in a tense, shimmering harmony within his own rampant chakra. Shifu orchestrated the pressure tests. Viper. Disrupt his center. Viper would slither forward, her chi becoming not a gentle flow, but a viscous, entangling current meant to trip the harmony in his meridians. Naruto, holding a nascent sphere of silver energy between his palms, a Chikai orb, they were tentatively calling it, would feel his crane-like diffusion falter. The orb would sputter, edges fraying into angry blue spikes. Do not fight her current. Shifu's voice cracked like a whip. Incorporate it. Let her energy become part of the flow. Your Chikai is not a wall, it is a riverbed. Naruto would grit his teeth, breathing through the disruption. He'd imagine Viper's slippery chi not as an obstacle, but as a new tributary joining his river. He'd adjust, the silver energy shimmering as it momentarily integrated the foreign pulse before restabilizing. The orb held, now humming with a subtle, undulating rhythm. Better. Crane. Test his buoyancy. Crane would sweep in, not with an attack, but with a massive, chi-infused gust from his wings. The force wasn't meant to knock Naruto over, but to lift him, to make him ungrounded. The moment Naruto's feet left the floor, his connection to the tiger's focused will would waver. The silver orb would lighten, becoming diffuse, threatening to float away and dissipate. Root. The tiger's ferocity is also stillness. The mountain does not fly. Be the mountain in the storm. Naruto would plant his will, visualizing roots of silver light drilling through the gust and into the stone below. He'd find the eye of the aerial turbulence, and the orb would solidify again, weighty and present. Day after day, it was a brutal cycle of formation and stress. Mantis would test its precision by having Naruto try to use a Chikai-coated fingertip to trace a character on a leaf without tearing it. Monkey would fill the hall with chaotic noise and motion, testing his focus. Tigress would deliver sudden, controlled bursts of aggressive chi, testing the orb's resilience, its ability to absorb and reconcile a direct strike without shattering back into discord. Poe's role was different. He was the control group. He'd stand at the edge, his own golden chi a warm, steady beacon. When Naruto's synthesis would fray, when the red of Kurama or the blue of his own frustration would bleed through, Po would simply emit. A wave of pure, uncomplicated, panda-style, awesome, would wash over him. It wasn't an instruction. It was a reminder. A tuning fork of peace. And often, that was enough to bring the silver harmony back. Through it all, the distant, hungry pull from the other side was a constant, nagging counterpoint. It was the dissonant melody they were all learning to play against. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling session where Mantis had him balancing 3 Chikai orbs of different sizes while Viper tried to tie his legs in knots, Naruto collapsed against a pillar, drenched in sweat that shimmered with faint silver motes. It's too slow, he gasped. I can hold it, shape it, but forming it takes focus. In a real fight, against more of those things. I won't have time. Shifu tapped his staff thoughtfully. You are thinking like a shinobi, crafting a tool for battle. Chikai is not a tool. It is an expression of your being. You do not form your heartbeat when you run, it simply beats. This must become the same. How? Naruto asked, the question a plea. It was Uguay, observing silently from his perch by the pool, who answered. You have built the lattice within your energy body. Now you must build the house within your mind. You must have a mental fortress of reconciliation. A place you go, instantly, where the 5 aspects are already in harmony. A memory. A feeling. A memory. Naruto closed his eyes, searching. His mind was a gallery of flashbacks, most of them loud, painful, explosive. The joy of ramen with Irika. The determination facing pain. The bond with Sasuke, forged in conflict and betrayal. Peace was rarer. Then he found it. It was a quiet moment, one he'd almost forgotten. Sitting on the bench outside Ichiraku with Kakashi, after the war. No words. Just the setting sun, the smell of broth, and a profound, exhausted, shared understanding. A moment where nothing needed to be said, or done, or fought. A moment of reconciliation with a world that had finally, mostly, stopped trying to destroy him. He held that feeling. The warmth of the sun. The silence that wasn't empty, but full. The simple, unasked-for presence of his teacher. He breathed in, and as he exhaled, he didn't construct the Chikai energy. He simply remembered it into existence. The silver aura bloomed around him, not from his hands outward, but from his core, instantaneous and steady. A single, perfectly formed orb of shimmering light appeared, floating serenely above his open palm. The hall fell silent. Not even the sound of breathing. Poe's jaw hung open. Whoa. That was, instant noodle style. Just add memory and bam. Shifu's eyes were wide. You have found your touchstone. It was the breakthrough. From that moment, Chikai was no longer a technique he performed. It was a state he could enter. The mental fortress of the Ichiraku sunset. He could now summon the silver energy as easily as flaring his chakra, and holding it under pressure became a matter of returning to that memory, of reinforcing the walls of that quiet moment against the noise of the world. Now, they could truly experiment. Can you shape it? Monkey asked, intrigued. If it's like clay made of peace. Naruto tried. Focusing on the orb, he willed it to elongate, to form a simple staff. The silver light complied, but it wavered, its surface rippling like disturbed water. It held no solidity. It is energy of harmony, not matter, Crane observed. It will not strike a physical blow. But it can interact with other energy, Tigress said, stepping forward. Strike my chi. She gathered her golden, focused energy into a classic tiger paw strike in the air, a blast of compressed intent. Naruto, holding his Chikai staff, more of a pole, really, swept it to meet it. There was no crash. The golden blast struck the silver pole and dissolved. Not deflected, not absorbed, but gently unraveled, its aggressive intent smoothed away into harmless light. The Chikai pole vibrated, glowing brighter for a second, then calmed. It reconciles, Viper whispered, fascinated. It turns a fist into an open hand. Then let's see what it does to that, Shifu said, his voice grim. He nodded to a corner of the hall where, under Uguay's supervision, they had contained a tiny, sickly green wisp of energy siphoned from the edge of the spirit realm gateway, a sample of the corrosive discord. Shifu directed the wisp toward Naruto with a flick of his staff. It hissed through the air, leaving a trail of psychic frost. Naruto didn't thrust his Chikai pole. He simply held it in the wisp's path. The reaction was profound. The sickly green wisp touched the silver light and screamed, a silent, spiritual screech. It didn't fight, it unmade itself. The corruption burned away in a flash of clear white light, leaving behind a faint, clean scent of rain. The Chikai pole didn't just survive, it seemed strengthened, polished by the act of purification. Uguay's eyes closed in deep satisfaction. The antibody learns to recognize the disease. The implications were staggering. Chikai wasn't a weapon for defeating an army. It was a tool for healing the battlefield itself. It could purify the corrupting energy that any invaders would bring with them, that was already leaking from the gateway. It could protect the valley's chi. But could it protect people? Hit me, Naruto said to Pa. What? No way, dude. I don't hit friends with glowing energy. Not to hurt me, Naruto insisted. I want to try something. Just a little whoosh of your chi, at my chest. Po looked uncertain, but at Shifu's nod, he formed a small, softball-sized ball of his golden panda chi and lobbed it gently. Naruto focused. He didn't create an orb or a pole. He imagined the Chikai energy as a cloak, a second skin woven from the memory of peace. He poured the silver light out, not in a shape, but in a field around his body. Po's chi ball struck the silver field and splashed against it, not with force, but like a stone dropped into a pond of mercury. Ripples of gold and silver spread out in beautiful, concentric circles across the surface of the field before the energy dissipated, harmlessly integrated. Naruto felt only a gentle push, like a strong breeze. He had done it. A Chikai barrier. A shield that didn't block, but reconciled. The excitement in the hall was palpable. They had a defense. Now, Shifu said, the glint in his eye turning tactical. The final test. We must see if this bridge can bear weight in both directions. Naruto. You have stabilized your end. Can you send something back? They all understood. Not an attack. A message. A reinforcement of the bridge's nature. Naruto sat in the center of the hall, the five forming a circle around him, their own chi held in calm, supportive states. Pa sat directly before him, a living grounding rod. Oogway and Shifu watched from the periphery. Naruto entered his mental fortress, the Ichiraku sunset. The silver Chikai energy bloomed within him, pure and strong. He focused not on the distant pull, but on the connection itself, the thin, cold tether. He didn't try to sever it or fight it. He imagined wrapping it in silver light. Sheathing the poisoned rope in a sleeve of reconciliation. He poured his will, his newfound harmony, down that line. He sent the feeling of the Jade Palace at dawn. The taste of Poe's medicinal broth. The sound of the bamboo chiming. The focused fire of Tigress, the playful wisdom of Monkey, the gentle strength of Viper, the graceful lift of Crane, the precise truth of Mantis. He sent the memory of the sunset bench. He sent a single, clear thought concept, not in words, but in pure intent: I am not an anchor. I am a keystone. For a moment, nothing. Then, the distant pull, stuttered. In the dark cavern, Sasuke Uchiha gasped, his Rinnegan flaring violently. The invisible chain, in his hand, a metaphysical construct linking the ghetto statue's hunger to the beacon of the Nine Tails, suddenly grew warm. Not with stolen energy, but with something else. A flood of alien sensations washed over him: serenity, discipline, camaraderie, a profound and stubborn peace. It was cloying, disorienting. It was the opposite of everything this place, this mission, was about. The ghetto statue groaned, not in hunger, but in confusion. The siphoned energy, which had been a steady stream of discordant power, hiccuped, flickered with threads of clean, silver light. Zetsu writhed. What is this? This calm. It's interfering with the resonance. It's strengthening the connection, but making it slippery. Sasuke grimaced, trying to reassert the malignant pull, to filter out the foreign harmony. But it was like trying to grasp oil. The chain was no longer a simple rope to haul, it was becoming a live wire carrying a two-way current. The image of Naruto, not raging or desperate, but centered and calm amidst strange animal warriors, flashed in his mind. He's not just surviving there, Sasuke realized, a chill that had nothing to do with the cavern touching his spine. He's adapting. He's learning. And he's pushing back. The dragon, Sasuke ground out, shifting his focus. Forget fine control. Pour the energy into awakening it. If we cannot pull the anchor, we will pull the entire sea and drag him back in the tidal wave. Back in the Hall of Warriors, Naruto's eyes snapped open. The silver light around him faded. He was drenched in sweat, but exhilarated. They felt it, he reported. The pull changed. It got angry. Frustrated. And then it shifted. It's not focused on me as much now. It's going deeper. Towards the dragon. Shifu's face hardened. They are changing tactics. They seek to force the crisis. To awaken the guardian and unleash its rage, hoping the resulting cataclysm will tear you loose and deliver the prize. Oogway nodded slowly. Then our time has just grown shorter. The Chikai is a scalpel, Naruto. You have learned to cleanse a wound. But soon, you may be faced with a raging fever that threatens to burn down the hospital. Can your reconciliation stand before a force of pure, primal anger? Naruto looked at his hands, where the silver light had been. He thought of the great stone dragon, a being of spirit and mountain, being painfully roused to a rage not its own. A being of this world, suffering because of a conflict from his. He thought of his mental fortress. Not just the sunset bench, but all of it, the lessons, the friendships, the hard-won peace within himself. I don't know if I can stop it, he said honestly, his voice quiet but firm in the hushed hall. But I can try to talk to it. My Chikai, it's not a weapon. It's a language. Maybe I can use it to speak to the dragon. To offer it something other than anger. Pa put a heavy paw on his shoulder, his grin fierce and proud. That's the dragon warrior spirit, dude. Not fighting the darkness, but inviting it over for noodles and a chat. Way more awesome. The stage was set. The Chikai no Waza was forged. The bridge was strengthened. But the greatest test was no longer an invading army of corruption. It was a sleeping god of stone, about to be kicked awake. And Naruto Uzumaki, the ninja of reconciliation, would have to find a way to whisper peace into the ear of a volcano. Chapter 7, The Dream of the Dragon. The world beneath the world was not silent. It had a rhythm, the slow grind of continental plates, the sigh of molten stone, the deep, resonant hum of the planet's own unimaginable life force. And within that, in a gorge carved not by water but by time's own weary passage, slept the great stone dragon. Its dreams were the color of basalt and obsidian, slow-moving visions of mountains rising and falling like breaths. Now, a new sound invaded its slumber. A thin, discordant whine, like a rusted nail being dragged across its consciousness. It was the pull from the other side, amplified, no longer a tentative probe but a desperate, drilling force. It bypassed the anchor point, the strange, silver-lit knot of harmonized energy that had recently become more of an irritation than a conduit, and bored directly into the deep strata of the dragon's spiritual essence. The dragon did not wake with a start. It woke with a low, seismic grumble of profound displeasure. A mountain deciding it had a headache. In the Jade Palace, the tremor was not felt in the feet, but in the soul. Every master, every student, every potted plant shivered as a wave of ancient, aggrieved awareness washed over the valley. The sky above the spirit realm gateway didn't just pulse green, it convulsed, darkening to the color of a bruise. A sound like grinding continents rolled down from the mountains. Oogway, standing at the edge of the pool of sacred tears, watched the water's surface not ripple, but crystallize momentarily into perfect, geometric frost patterns before shattering back to liquid. He is roused, the old turtle said, his voice carrying a weight of millennia. And he is not happy. Shifu assembled them in the fractured courtyard, his face carved from grim stone. The invasion we anticipated has changed. The enemy does not need to send soldiers. They have awakened the soldier that was already here. The dragon's anger will be a tsunami of raw chi, corroded by the foreign malice fueling it. It will not attack the valley. It will become the valley's destruction. The land itself will rise in its rage. Naruto felt it. The tether, now slippery with his Chikai energy, was thrumming with a new, terrifying frequency. It was no longer a fishing line, it was a lightning rod channeling a building storm. And the storm's name was betrayal, the betrayal of its own sanctity, the violation of its eternal sleep. My technique, Naruto said, the words tasting of ash. It's meant to reconcile. To purify corruption. But this isn't corruption. It's a rightful anger that's been poisoned. How do I reconcile a rage that has every right to exist? You do not reconcile the rage, a voice said from behind. It was Tigress. She stepped forward, her usual fierce focus tempered by something else, empathy. You bear witness to it. You acknowledge its source. My anger, when I was young, was a wild, destructive thing. Shifu did not tell me to stop being angry. He taught me to give my anger a purpose. To focus it. The dragon's anger is its power. We cannot calm it. We must help it aim. Aim at what? Crane asked, his wings rustling nervously. The source is in another world. The bridge goes both ways, Naruto said, an insane idea igniting in his mind. It was a shinobi idea, a Hail Mary pass of monumental proportions. The Chikai. I can use it. Not as a shield here. As a conduit. A pathway for its anger. I can't take its rage away. But I can offer it a target. The ones who poisoned its sleep. A stunned silence fell. Pa broke it with a whisper. You want to let the dragon's anger through you? To the other side? Dude, you're tough, but you're not a spiritual sewer pipe. It would shatter you, Shifu said bluntly. Your Chikai harmony is a delicate balance. A flood of that magnitude would obliterate it, and you. Not if the bridge is strong enough, Naruto insisted, the plan cohering with terrifying clarity. Not if I'm not a pipe, but a lens. I use my Chikai to focus its rage, to keep it from spilling into this world, and I aim it straight back down the tether at the ones pulling it. I give the dragon its target. Oogway's eyes were closed, calculating probabilities on a scale no one else could perceive. It is a risk that borders on catastrophe. If you fail, the focused anger rebounds, and the valley is vaporized. If you succeed, you channel a force that could unmake the practitioners of the forbidden jutsu on the other side. You would become an instrument of vengeance, not reconciliation. Naruto met the ancient turtle's gaze. It's not vengeance if it's self-defense for two worlds. They attacked this one first. They're using its guardian as a weapon. I'm just returning fire. With their own ammunition. The ghost of a smile touched Oogway's lips. The student of peace learns the necessity of the focused strike. Very well. The dragon's waking breath will be the first wave. You must be ready to meet it, not at the gateway, but here, at the point of the tear, within you. We will support you. But the lens must be your own. Preparations were a frantic, silent ballet. The Furious Five took positions around Naruto in the training ground, not in a combat circle, but in the 5 points of a pentagram, each representing their aspect. Their role was not to fight the dragon's energy, but to stabilize the space around Naruto, to ground the local chi so his Chikai lens had a stable platform. Pa sat directly before him, his eyes closed, his own chi a warm, steady anchor, a living reminder of the peace they were fighting for. Naruto sat in the lotus position, drawing deep, centering breaths. He built his mental fortress. The Ichiraku sunset. But he added to it. He layered in the sound of Poe's laugh. The feel of Tigress's disciplined strike. The shimmer of Viper's coils. The chiming bamboo from Crane's domain. The precise click of Mantis's claws. He built a fortress not of solitude, but of community. He entered the Chikai state. The silver light didn't flare aggressively, it settled around him like a mantle, deep and profound. At its core, over his heart, a concentration of light began to spin slowly, not a Rasengan, a violent whirl, but a vortex of serene, focused intent, the lens. Above them, the sky tore. It wasn't a rift. It was an exhalation. The spirit realm gateway vomited a column of pure, murky, earth-toned energy shot through with veins of sickly green poison. It was the dragon's first, groggy, furious breath. It didn't arc toward the valley, it simply expanded, a dome of annihilation descending with the grim finality of a closing tomb. The five tensed. Their combined chi flared, Tigress's focused gold, Viper's fluid blue, Crane's lifting white, Monkey's mischievous amber, Mantis's precise emerald, forming a shimmering, five-colored dome over their position. The descending wave of corrupted earth chi hit it. The dome held, but it shrieked under the pressure, buckling inward. It wasn't designed to stop the energy, only to funnel it, to guide the colossal force toward the single point where Naruto sat. The wave found him. It was like being at the epicenter of an earthquake that was also a thunderstorm that was also a volcano. The raw, primal anger of a violated world spirit crashed into Naruto's silver Chikai field. The sound was beyond sound, a spiritual tearing that vibrated in the bones of every living thing for miles. Naruto's fortress shook. The memory of the sunset bench cracked. He screamed, but no sound left his throat, stolen by the torrent. His Chikai lens spun wildly, threatening to fly apart. The dragon's rage was a simple, overwhelming thing, who dares? It was not a question. It was a declaration of war. I see you. Naruto thought back, not with words, but with the totality of his gathered experience. He pushed the memories into the lens, the kindness of this world, the manipulation from his own, the faces of Pa, Shifu, the five. He pushed the concept of the poison, the image of the Rinnegan, the hollow hunger of the ghetto statue. He did not try to calm the rage. He acknowledged it. He gave it a name, a shape, a source. The thief. The poisoner. The dragon's consciousness roared, its attention, vast as a continent, focusing through the unexpected, silver-tinted lens that was Naruto's soul. The anger didn't lessen. It sharpened. Now. Naruto gasped, the word a bloody bubble in the maelstrom. He turned the lens. He took the colossal, now focused column of the dragon's rage, a beam of condensed, vengeful earth and spirit, and he aimed it not at the valley, not at the sky, but inward. Down the thrumming, poison tether that connected him to the cavern in his own world. He became the conduit. The backlash was immediate and personal. Channeling such power, even focused, was like holding the heart of a star. His Chikai energy, the silver light, began to fissure, black cracks of pure strained spiderwebbing through it. He felt his own chakra system screaming, his meridians burning as they conducted a force they were never meant to touch. Kurama roared in shared agony within him, its own potent energy being scoured by the foreign, monumental power. But the bridge held. The lattice he'd built, tempered by the five, anchored by Pa, held the lens in shape. And in the dark cavern, the world changed. Sasuke Uchiha felt the shift in the metaphysical chain first. The slippery, peaceful resistance vanished. For a second, there was nothing. Then, the chain in his mind's hand grew hot. Not warm. Incandescent. A sound filled the cavern, a deep, grinding roar that came from nowhere and everywhere. The stone of the cavern walls themselves began to weep, not water, but a thick, gritty substance that glowed with angry ochre light. What is this? Zetsu shrieked, its form recoiling. The feedback, it's reversed. The ghetto statue, its mouth open in perpetual hunger, suddenly convulsed. The energy it had been siphoning wasn't just cut off. It was replaced. A torrent of pure, undiluted, terrestrial wrath came flooding back up the connection. It wasn't chakra. It wasn't even chi, as the valley knew it. It was the fury of the land itself. It hit the ghetto statue like a planetary fist. The wooden statue didn't crack. It petrified. From its feet upward, the unnatural would turn to screaming, tortured stone, a wave of solidification that raced up its body, freezing its hunger into a silent, agonized shriek. The Rinnegan eyes of the statue clouded over, becoming dull orbs of granite. The wave of petrification didn't stop at the statue. It surged outwards along the lines of the forbidden jutsu, seeking the source of the poison. It raced up Sasuke's outstretched arm. He had a split second to see the stone, alive with furious consciousness, crawling over his fingertips. With a grunt of immense effort and a flash of his Rinnegan, he severed the connection entirely, performing a chakra-severing technique so violent it ripped a phantom wound in his own spiritual network. He was thrown backwards, his arm numb and gray to the elbow, but flesh, not stone. Zetsu was not so fast. The wave of the dragon's focused rage caught its amorphous form. It had time for one short, digital scream before it solidified into a twisted, black and white statue of absolute terror, frozen forever in the act of trying to flee. The Uchiha stone tablet, the source of the Kenjutsu, glowed white-hot for an instant and then exploded into a million shards of inert dust. The backlash through the connection ceased as suddenly as it had begun. The chain was gone, severed on both ends. In the Jade Palace, the column of murky energy from the gateway winked out. The bruise in the sky began to fade, the sickly green poison purged, leaving only the natural, shimmering silver of the spirit realm boundary. Naruto collapsed forward, caught by Pa. The silver Chikai light around him was gone, utterly extinguished. He was gray, trembling, his breath coming in ragged, wet hitches. His orange jacket was smoldering in places, and fine cracks, like dry earth, covered every inch of his visible skin. He had channeled a god's anger, and the price was written on his body and soul. But he was alive. The valley was intact. The five dropped their straining dome, panting with exhaustion. They looked at the clear sky, then at the broken boy in the panda's arms. A final, profound tremor passed through the ground. Not angry. Settling. A deep, resonant thought, less a voice and more the feeling of a mountain lying back down, echoed through every master's mind. The poison is cut. The thief is silenced. The anchor has become a guardian. Sleep now. And with that, the immense presence of the great stone dragon receded, not into slumber, but into a watchful, satisfied rest. The crisis was over. Po looked down at Naruto's cracked, ashen face. Dude, he whispered, tears in his big eyes. That was the most insane, reckless, stupidly brave thing I've ever seen. You talked a mountain into punching another dimension. Shifu approached, his sternness melted away into something resembling awe. He placed a paw on Naruto's forehead. The skin was cold, but a faint, stubborn ember of life heat pulsed beneath. He is empty. Burned out. But the roots are deep. He will need time. And soup. A lot of soup. Oogway stood over them, his ancient face a landscape of relief and sorrow. The wound is cauterized. The tear, without the malignant force sustaining it, will now begin to heal naturally. But the healer, he bears the scar of the surgery. Naruto, in the distant, pain-filled haze of his consciousness, felt only one thing, a deep, resonating silence where the constant, hungry pull had been. The tether was gone. Severed, cleanly, on both ends. He had done it. He had saved 2 worlds. But as darkness closed in, he knew one final, heartbreaking truth. The bridge he had just used to save everything was also the only way home. And it was gone. Chapter 8, The Soup of Emptiness. Silence. It was the first thing Naruto became aware of. Not a peaceful silence, but a profound, hollow absence. For weeks, the dissonant pull of the tether had been a constant, gnawing presence in his soul, a psychic toothache. Its sudden removal left a void so vast it felt like a physical wound. He floated in that void, unmoored. The second thing was pain. Not the sharp, clarifying pain of a chakra burn or a broken bone, but a deep, systemic ache. It was in his marrow, in the pathways where his chakra used to flow with the familiar, turbulent force of a river. Now, those pathways felt like dry riverbeds under a desert sun, cracked, brittle, and empty. The cracks on his skin, the visible evidence of channeling the dragon's rage, had faded to faint, silvery scars, but the internal damage went deeper. He opened his eyes. He was in a small, sunlit room in the Jade Palace. The air smelled of honey, herbs, and clean linen. The window looked out onto a serene corner of the gardens where a small koi pond glittered. It was beautiful. It felt like a cage. The door slid open with a soft whisper. Pa entered, carrying a tray that bore a single, large, steaming bowl. He moved with a care that was utterly alien to his usual bouncing self. When he saw Naruto's open eyes, his own widened, and a huge, wobbly smile spread across his face. "You're back," he whispered, as if speaking too loud might break him. He set the tray down carefully and knelt by the bed. Don't try to move too much, okay? Master Viper said your everything is like overcooked noodle that needs to rehydrate. You've been out for 4 days. 4 days. Naruto tried to speak. His throat was parched parchment. The valley? Safe. Pa said, his voice swelling with relief. The sky is all cleared up. The gateway's just a waterfall again. No glowy green badness. The dragon went back to sleep. Or vigilant napping. Shifu says the spiritual pressure is normal. Well, as normal as it gets with a giant spirit lizard sleeping under the mountains. He picked up the bowl. But you, my friend, are not normal. You are empty. So. We fix that. He helped Naruto sit up, propping pillows behind him. The simple movement sent waves of dizziness and a deep, grinding fatigue through him. He felt lighter than air and heavier than lead all at once. Pa lifted a spoonful of broth to his lips. It was the same ultimate medicinal broth from his first day, but it tasted different. Or perhaps he was different. Before, the flavors had been separate notes he could identify. Now, they were a blur of warmth with no distinction. He swallowed. The heat spread through his chest, a small comfort in the vast emptiness. The tether, Naruto croaked. It's gone. Poe's cheerful expression faltered for just a second. Yeah. Oogway says the backlash from the dragon's punch, and you severing it on your end, it snapped the connection clean. Like cutting a rope under too much tension. He forced the smile back. But hey. No more creepy pulling. No more shadow clay monsters. You did it. You're a hero. A hero. The word echoed in the hollow chamber of his chest. He had saved this world. He should feel triumph, relief. Instead, he felt a crushing weight of loss. The tether had been a violation, a sickness. But it had also been his last, frayed connection to everything he knew. To Kakashi, to Sakura, to Konoha, to the very idea of being a shinobi. With it gone, he wasn't just stranded. He was orphaned. He ate the rest of the broth in silence, each spoonful a mechanical act. Pa chattered about what had happened while he was out, how the 5 had taken turns keeping watch, how the valley was throwing a "thanks for not letting the mountain kill us" festival, unofficially, how his dad had sent up a special shipment of extra hearty noodles. Naruto heard the words, but they bounced off the void inside him. Over the next few days, the routine established itself. Po was his constant, gentle shadow. He brought soup, told rambling, cheerful stories, and tried, with an aching earnestness, to fill the silence Naruto left behind. The masters visited. Viper checked his meridians with a gentle, coiling touch, her chi a cool, probing stream. The pathways are not damaged, she said, her voice soft with pity. They are dormant. As if the river has decided to stop being a river. Your Chikai energy is gone. Not depleted. Absent. Crane brought him to sit in the sun, teaching him breathing exercises meant to catch the updraft of the spirit. Naruto breathed. The air felt thin. Mantis tried to get him to focus on the minute details of a single flower, to find the point of life within it. Naruto saw only shapes and colors, devoid of meaning. Monkey swung by with jokes and playful antics, trying to provoke a reaction, a spark of the old fight. Naruto just looked at him, his blue eyes dull, and Monkey's grin would slowly fade. Tigress came last. She didn't bring soup or exercises. She stood at the foot of his bed, her arms crossed, and looked at him for a long, hard minute. You won the war, she stated. Now you are losing the peace. This is not balance. This is surrender. There's nothing to fight, Naruto said, his voice flat. The fight's over. The fight to be you is never over, she countered, her amber eyes blazing. You defined yourself by your connection to your home, by your power, by your mission. Those are gone or changed. So who are you now? A vase that held a precious flower and now sits empty on a shelf? Or are you the potter, who can make something new? She left him with that question hanging in the quiet room. It echoed in the void, finding no answer. The worst was the attempt to summon chakra. A week after waking, alone in his room, he tried. He formed the ram seal, reaching inward for the familiar, blazing well of power. He touched nothing. A dry, silent well. Not a drop. A cold, spiraling panic seized him. He tried harder, gritting his teeth, straining until the new, silvery scars on his arms ached. Nothing. Not even the faintest blue flicker. Kurama? He thought, casting the question into the inner darkness where the fox's presence had always been, a vast, red, simmering consciousness. Silence. Not hostile silence. Empty silence. The fox was asleep? Gone? Sealed away by the catastrophic drain? He didn't know. The partnership, the constant, grudging dialogue, the immense power he had learned to wield and befriend, it was just gone. He was alone in his own skull in a way he had never been, not even as a despised child. He was nobody. No chakra. No Chikai. No tether. No home. That night, he dreamed not of Konoha, but of the moment the tether snapped. He felt it again, the terrifying, liberating severance. And in the dream, he was not in the cavern or the palace. He was falling through the void between worlds, and no one was there to catch him. No Kakashi, no no one. Just endless, silent falling. He woke with a gasp, drenched in a cold sweat that had no heat to it. The next morning, found him not in bed, but standing by the window, staring out at the impossibly vibrant, peaceful valley. His shoulders were slumped, his hands clenched at his sides. Naruto? Asked, his voice tentative. I can't do it, Naruto said, the words torn from some raw, exposed place. He didn't turn around. I can't be here. Like this. I'm not a ninja. I'm not a student. I'm not even a good guest. I'm a ghost. Po was quiet for a long moment. Then he set the breakfast tray down with a soft clink. You know what my dad says about the secret ingredient soup? Naruto didn't answer. He says the secret is that there is no secret ingredient. The soup is special because you believe it's special. Po walked over to stand beside him, following his gaze out to the misty peaks. When I became the dragon warrior, I was just a fat panda who liked food. I had no kung fu. No chi, I was empty too. Emptier than a kicked-over noodle bowl. I had to believe I could be something else. I had to make a new recipe. You had a destiny, Naruto muttered. So did you. Pa said, his voice gaining strength. And you fulfilled it. You saved 2 worlds. That's one heck of a destiny. Now, you get a new one. The best part. The what happens after you save the day part. There is no after for me, Naruto said, the despair finally boiling over. My after is in another world. My friends, my teacher, my village, they don't know if I'm alive or dead. I don't even know if I'm alive. He slammed a fist against the window frame, a weak, pathetic impact. I'm useless here, Pa. I have nothing to give. Po's big, gentle face was suddenly very serious. He turned Naruto to face him, his paws firm on his shoulders. You listen to me, Naruto Uzumaki. You have everything to give. You just can't see it because you're looking for it in the wrong place. He tapped Naruto's chest, right over his heart. You're looking for your chakra. For your fox. For your glowing energy. That's just the soup, dude. The flavor. The ingredients. But the bowl, the thing that holds it all? That's you. And that bowl isn't cracked. It's just clean. Waiting for the next recipe. Naruto wanted to argue, to wallow in the despair. But the absolute, unshakable conviction in Po's eyes was a lifeline thrown into the void. It was the same conviction that had seen a dragon warrior in a clumsy panda. I don't know how, Naruto whispered, the anger bleeding out, leaving only the hollow ache. You start, Pa said, his grin returning, softer now, by finishing your breakfast. And then maybe, we take a walk. Not a training walk. Not a find yourself walk. Just a walk. To see the valley you saved. Because it's pretty awesome. And it's kinda yours now, too. It was a tiny thing. A meaningless thing. But it was a step. A step away from the window, away from the void. Naruto let Po lead him out. They didn't go to the training grounds. They walked through the palace kitchens, where the cooks bowed to Naruto with deep, solemn respect that made him uncomfortable. They walked through the gardens, where the flowers seemed to bend toward him as he passed. They walked down the 1,000 steps, but chatting about nothing, and into the valley of peace proper. It was bustling, vibrant, alive in a way Konoha never was. No hidden tension, no subtle threat assessments. Just, life. A goose argued with a rabbit over the price of radishes. Piglets played in the mud. And everyone, stopped and stared as they passed. Not with fear or curiosity, but with a profound, quiet gratitude. They didn't mob him. They just bowed their heads, or offered a small, sincere smile. They knew. They knew the quiet, broken boy in orange had stood between them and the end of everything. He felt like a fraud. They ended up at the noodle shop. Mr. Ping, a small, nervous goose, took one look at Naruto, squeaked, and vanished into the back, emerging with 2 enormous, steaming bowls of his special secret ingredient soup. He placed them on the counter with trembling wings, his eyes huge. For the guardian, he stammered, and fled again. Naruto stared at the soup. The aroma was rich, complex, comforting. He picked up a spoon. He took a sip. And for the first time since the dragon's breath, he tasted it. Not just warmth. He tasted the careful simmer of the broth, the earthy tang of the mushrooms, the subtle bite of the ginger, the sweet note of the roasted garlic. It was a harmony. A simple, delicious, crafted harmony. He ate the whole bowl. And as he did, sitting in the sunny doorway of a noodle shop in a valley he had saved, surrounded by a piece he had bought with his own emptiness, a single, clear thought surfaced in the void. The bowl is not empty. It is full of this. It wasn't chakra. It wasn't power. It wasn't a way home. It was just soup. And a friend. And a sunny day. And it was enough, for this moment, to fill the silence. Not with noise, but with a fragile, newfound peace. The war was over. The long, quiet work of healing his own spirit had just begun. And for the first time, he looked at the endless, serene sky of this world not as a prison, but as the ceiling of a very strange, very precious new home. Chapter 9, The Sound of One Hand Clapping. The walk back up the 1,000 steps to the Jade Palace was a different journey. Naruto's body still ached with the deep, systemic fatigue, a hollowed-out vessel. But the crushing despair had receded, banked like a fire by the simple, undeniable reality of the soup, the sun, and Poe's unwavering presence. The void within him was still there, vast and silent, but it no longer felt like a tomb. It felt like a cleared field after a wildfire. Barren, but ready. Shifu met them at the palace gates. His keen eyes took in Naruto's posture, still weary, but no longer broken, and gave the smallest, barely perceptible nod. Oogway wishes to see you. In the peach tree courtyard. The peach tree of heavenly wisdom, once shaken bare by Naruto's arrival, had begun the slow process of rebirth. Tiny, furled green buds dotted its branches, defiant against the memory of trauma. Oogway stood beneath it, not meditating, but simply watching a single ladybug traverse a leaf. He turned as they approached, his ancient face a landscape of gentle knowing. Naruto Uzumaki, he said, his voice the sound of water over smooth stone. You have walked in the valley. I ate soup, Naruto replied, the statement feeling both absurd and profoundly important. Oogway's eyes crinkled. The first and greatest lesson. To be present for the meal. He gestured for Naruto to sit on a stone bench beside him. Po lingered a respectful distance away, a silent, supportive shadow. The tether is severed, Oogway began. The wound between worlds is healing. The dragon sleeps, its purpose fulfilled. You are safe. The valley is safe. And yet, you are not. Naruto looked at his hands, resting on his knees. They looked ordinary. No glow, no tremor of power. I have no chakra. I can't even light a leaf on fire. I'm ordinary. Is that what frightens you? Oogway asked. Ordinariness? After a life of such extraordinary tumult? It's not fright, Naruto said, fumbling for the words. It's like being a sword that's been melted down. The sword had a purpose. The metal, just is. A sword's purpose is to cut, Oogway mused. A limited, violent purpose. Metal can be a plowshare, a bell, a locket holding a picture of a loved one. Its potential is vast, but only when it is released from the idea of being a sword. He leaned forward slightly. Your chakra, your karama, even your brilliant Chikai, they were tools. Extraordinary tools for an extraordinary crisis. The crisis is over. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, has asked for your tools back. It is not a punishment. It is an invitation. An invitation to what? Naruto's voice was a whisper.